Feng Yi follows the team as they push past the town's edge, stepping deeper into the forest where the air thickens and danger presses closer with every stride. "Oh my God, is that really it?" someone gasps, staring at a colossal vine rising endlessly upward. The sight steals her breath. Without seeing it firsthand, she would never believe something so massive and unnatural could exist. Suddenly, the online lover speaks with a shaking voice, begging them to stop, asking if they can turn back now. Her fear impossible to hide. She trembles head to toe, admitting a crushing sense of unease that tightens her chest. She explains that a friend from her former team once came here and never returned. When DeLeo last appeared, that stronger team tried to approach, yet even cultivators of higher realms vanished without a trace. None of them came back alive. She fears the same fate awaits them, dying here without even leaving a body behind. Hugging her head, she whispers in terror as panic seeps through the group. Her body shakes as if invisible vines are already closing in, shattering her earlier resolve to gamble everything on cultivation. Through tears, she admits her instincts scream danger, sensing an unknown, highly evolved anomaly, and she refuses to be buried here. The alluring woman frowns and demands silence, while Lin Yi calmly agrees that everyone can feel the same pressure. She studies the towering vine and explains its warped aura, like time itself, decaying life, draining vitality and crushing the spirit. Taking the frightened girl's hand, she steadies her, reminding her that pioneers of cultivation must walk such paths. From a distant cliff, he watches in silence, sharp eyes measuring the scene and the suffocating presence surrounding the vine. Among all anomalies he has encountered, only this vine rivals the dread of dark attributes. Dried blood, bones, and corpses cling to it like ornaments, a mockery of life, hollow and lifeless beneath its living shell. Beneath the canopy, Lin Yi issues firm orders, stating there is no time left for hesitation. She assigns positions and warns everyone to stay within sight, and the team nods in tense agreement. Lam Yan scans the area, sees no immediate threat, and exhales softly, believing it may be safe for now. After a brief pause, she climbs onto a thick branch and begins cultivating, blue spiritual energy wrapping around her body. Watching from above, he folds his arms, silently praising her caution and balanced positioning near danger without retreat. Suddenly, the spiritual energy surges violently, and a thunderous blast erupts as a blue pillar shoots skyward. He stiffens in surprise, realizing she is breaking through far faster than expected, her talent undeniable. A sharp blue axe materializes mid-air, stunning the onlookers as gasps of amazement ripple through the group. At the same moment, the massive vines stir, awakening like predators catching a scent. Von Truk reacts instantly, shouting a warning that the vines are moving straight toward them. Panic spreads as someone cries out in disbelief, shocked that they were detected from such a distance. Before anyone can respond, two teammates are seized and bound, their screams tearing through the forest. Chaos erupts as fear takes over, self-preservation replacing teamwork, and the online lover flees while screaming to run. The vine slams into Lam Y's protective ring, rattling it violently as the breakthrough draws lethal attention. She remains unaware that cracks are forming under the crushing pressure. The alluring woman refuses to leave, but the terrified online lover snaps back in rage, blaming Lam Y's cultivation for risking everyone's lives. Van Truk coldly declares that fate decides life and death, urging retreat before they all perish. Enraged, the alluring woman strikes him hard across the face without hesitation. She snarls that she will not abandon her teammates. Turning back alone, she charges toward the danger to save Lam Y while he watches grimly from the cliff. Seeing the vines tightening, he weighs his strength, knowing time is nearly gone. Without delay, he grips his sword as radiant positive energy erupts, vowing to protect his cousin at any cost. Beneath the dense forest roof, the alluring woman strained with everything she had, blades flashing as she desperately hacked at the living vines closing in on her. The crafty tendrils, harder than forged steel, snapped around her ankles without warning, locking her movement and dragging her off balance. In the blink of an eye, the vines sealed around her body, wrapping her tight like a living cocoon with no opening left. At that same instant, Lam Wai's protective spiritual barrier cracked apart, crushed by the overwhelming pressure of the vines. In a razor-thin moment between survival and death, Fuang Dik charged forward, his golden blade erupting with blazing sunlight. Trapped and powerless, the seductive woman could only watch Lam Wai fall into danger, while the fleeing online lovers turned back as a final scream rang through the forest. He descended without warning, a radiant column of light ripping through space like a judgmental sun crashing down. The impact shook the heavens as his strike obliterated the vines, white smoke surging while shattered debris rained across the ground. He touched down calmly, one foot resting atop the glowing golden sword embedded in the earth. The remaining vines sensed death and fled across the scorched terrain, leaving Vantrug staring in disbelief as the assault abruptly ended. Countless vines still wriggled in place, but none escaped, all of them reduced to drifting dust under his overwhelming force. Light poured from him like a second sun, washing the battlefield in scorching brilliance. Ventruk shielded his eyes, shaken, realizing only an extreme yang power could dominate wild vines so recklessly and absolutely. Shruk ground his teeth in fury, his pride wounded, despite reaching Demon Lord stage 3 stars faster than nearly anyone else. That pride shattered as Lam Wai's existence, and especially this unknown monster, drove envy deep into his bones. He stood atop the mound, sword blazing gold, its pressure forcing every surrounding vine to retreat. Vantruk gazed up in awe, convinced that figures like this made all other cultivators nothing more than dim stars beneath a radiant moon. Facing that divine, transcendent presence, Vantruk froze, unable to grasp what kind of being stood before him. At that moment, the system echoed in his mind, confirming the extreme wood attribute had completed automatic optimization. He reviewed the new cultivation method, sensing its ability to grow endlessly, absorb vitality, and rapidly mend injuries. His eyes flickered with quiet focus as he judged its value, realizing it functioned like an unending engine wherever life existed. Another alert followed, revealing ongoing death attribute extraction, shocking him as dual powers merged smoothly under system support. He opened his eyes slowly, as if waking from a long dream, finally understanding why such vines thrived only in deadly terrain. The surrounding wood energy dispersed into nothingness as he calculated the devastation this growth could cause in open lands. Within dozens of miles, all vitality would be drained dry, its savage nature feeding on every living thing without restraint. His thoughts broke as a gentle yet weakened voice spoke behind him, filled with trembling gratitude. "Thank you for saving us," they said, admitting without him they would not have survived, and asking how to repay the debt. He waved dismissively and turned away, already calculating his gains from this encounter as the true victor. As he passed the online boyfriend beside Von Truk, his eyes flashed briefly with cold, calculating intent. Leaping into the air, he vanished from sight, knowing that fractured teams reveal their true weakness when disaster strikes. The online boyfriend stared blankly after him, stunned, while Van Truk mocked coldly about regrets and cowardice. Adjusting his glasses, he analyzed calmly, deciding that staying with Lam Wai's now stronger team was the safest option. As they spoke, Lam Wai completed her breakthrough, opening shimmering blue eyes that seemed to hold a sky of stars. The seductive woman rushed over in joy, whispering plans behind smiles, already weighing alliances and hidden threats. Lam Wai surveyed the ruined battlefield in shock, realizing only 4 of the original 6 had survived. Her gaze locked onto a nearby tree, sensing the lingering aura of Shu Ting Yang, its heat oppressive even from afar. Silent, the alluring woman stepped aside as Wanchuk moved forward, preparing to explain everything that had happened. Returning later, Lam Wai found peace elusive, her mind haunted by change, separation, and the memory of that monster. That figure burned like an immortal god, radiating pure yang, crushing demonic vines that others couldn't even wound. Wenja once pointed skyward, noting how the vine now curled in fear above. never daring to approach again. Lam Wai unlocks the door, yet the threat from that shadowy figure still claws at her mind, despite his exit. The vines now behave like tame chicks instead of raging attackers as the door swings open. Inside, she spots cousin Phuangditch seated in the living room, calm as ever, greeting her and noting she looks pale and worn. She isn't ready to mention spiritual energy recovery, so she dodges with a vague excuse, saying group study drained her. Fang Yi gives a faint smile with knowing eyes, tells her to rest, and says he'll order takeout tonight. Then he heads to his room and shuts the door. She leans on the door behind her and slides down. Spent to the bone, pushing past her limits and triggering divine armor burns focus worse than staying awake for months. She collapses onto the bed, quietly thankful she's no longer ordinary, because a few days like this would have ended her. She stares into the dark, wondering about her life, knowing cultivation isn't optional. While he slips out of the house, aware the world is changing too fast for her to stay normal, she grabs her phone and jolts when an unknown sender pops up, the name reading Gia Lam in the group chat. Gia Lam suddenly asks for any information about that expert, shocking her because this secretive person almost never speaks there. Right after, Not Fong Haku replies, asking if the rescuer might be the legend from Black River Dragon Cave, and if so, why that deity would save them at all. On the Cultivator forum, talk erupts non-stop as a viral post claims a high-level Yang attribute Grand Master returned, describing a single slash like a rainbow and a blinding white glow that forced witnesses from Black River's contaminated cave. While the rumors explode online, the very man they hype up rides quietly through the city, preparing for a late-night bike run. He mounts the bike and calculates in silence, thinking his cousin should suspect him less now, and that leaving tonight won't look like he's tailing her as the wheels start rolling. He pedals under dim yellow streetlights, determined to use her rest time to hunt for something that can absorb the wild attribute. He weighs the risk. Wild attribute clings to plants, yet it turns corrosive and hostile, and placing it on a living thing could backfire, especially with thunder attribute already running through him. He decides the best target is something akin to that strange vine, born from above and drawn by dense recovering spiritual energy, evolving on its own into desolation. And he speeds up, already knowing the route. Under weak moonlight and dull lamps, he rides straight on until a sign flashes by Sam Lam Park. He stops beside an ancient tree in Sam Lam City Park, returns the rented bike, and steps off with purpose. He strolls inside, muttering that he needs a plant that resonates with his spiritual energy, shows goodwill, and earns the right to receive the wild attribute. At the park center, he shuts his eyes and releases wood element spiritual energy, letting it spread like an invisible tide through the greenery as leaves and branches tremble to answer. Yet, none satisfy him. He pushes the wave farther, demanding a stronger reaction, until a sharp feedback hits back and he immediately moves in to investigate. In thick grass, a lively wildflower sways and shakes its petals like it's calling out, and he narrows his eyes, deciding a quick test won't hurt. He reaches toward it, and the petals snap playfully at his finger. Greedily drinking every thread of wood-type spiritual energy he feeds it. After a small fill, the flower opens wide and sways with obvious joy, practically performing to show its approval. He chuckles, amused at how sharp it is, acting like a hungry puppy that eats, then rubs against his hand to pledge loyalty. It seems to recognize the young man as its savior, the one who can grant it a new life, so it clings to him without hesitation. Pleased, he crouches and whispers that it's the strongest responder in the forest, perfect for implanting the wild attribute, and the flower nods rapidly as if it understands. Instantly, a terrifying surge erupts across the meadow, a deathly aura pouring from him toward the tiny plant as he lifts it gently into his palm, and the system reacts. The system confirms does he want to forcibly implant the wild attribute into this object, and he answers yes without a pause. A crushing force drops from above, wrapping both him and the flower in a heavy, unnatural pressure. He stares as the flower mutates, leaves spreading wildly while the pistil becomes pronounced, leaking a strange green glow. The nearby plants react and the whole scene warps, and he freezes, realizing the wild power feels like a demon's hand at work. In only 3 seconds, it nearly drains the life of the entire city forest, still expanding too fast and too far. The enlarged flower begins to shrink, and he snatches it up and yanks it free, deciding to stop before it draws the spirit energy association. Holding the mutated flower, he turns to leave and spots a camera on a tree, reminding himself this is the city center and the association is definitely watching. He sprints through eerie silence, noting the dense surveillance and no visitors, then studies the flower still absorbing energy, now gentler and refined, wondering if assigning an attribute triggers plant evolution. In the monitoring room, an electronic alarm voice announces abnormal readings exceeding the threshold again and again. A staffer mutters nervously, shocked the system still triggered, and orders an immediate transfer of the alert feed. The signal routes to the Spiritual Plant Recovery Research Department as sirens wail. Red lights flash, values spike, and panicked staff demand answers. The leader barks a strict command: everyone wear bracelets, rush to the park, seal the area, and block all outsiders from entering. The screen spikes to 30. A researcher blurts out that it's insane. Thantan University's North Gate used to hover at 8 to 10, yet Ama Dung Long already hit 25. Once spiritual density breaks 10, the military steps in. This is no coincidence. Everyone freezes. This park's readings were under 10 earlier. Instruments keep scanning. Something feels off. Humidity, soil moisture, temperature all stable, all normal, which only deepens the unease. Sunlight checks out, but the trees look hollowed, like their life was ripped away in seconds. Whatever did this wasn't slow, and it wasn't subtle. Someone mutters that this feels like a tribute-grade anomaly. Another insists they need to push forward. The real core is still ahead. A heavy voice cuts through the air with authority. Do not advance. Do not touch anything. This area carries the wilderness attribute. The researchers exchange stunned looks. A wasteland caused by a tribute-level phenomenon. The disguised professor steps in, tone grave. He asks if they know about the vines hanging in the sky. Realization hits them all at once. Gasps erupt. Those demon-like vines were logged as an A-rank mutation. He nods. Correct, their danger earned that rank. They slaughter indiscriminately, driven by a wild trait that drains surrounding life and claims everything it reaches. The group stiffens, fear crawling up their spines as they swallow in silence. A graduate student trembles, asking if one more step would have killed him. The answer is blunt. Yes. Awakened wild plants create death zones where vitality is stripped away on entry. He recalls reports from the south, the ancient tree forbidden zone near the trade city. Its rot poisoned the forest, turning the land lethal to any creature that approached. He stresses that after the world's upheaval, plant mutations are no joke. Among known types, the wild attribute reigns supreme. Now, a new source has emerged. A shadow slips in. Major Hanlei places a hand on the professor's shoulder, saying he understands the situation. The professor spins around, startled. Hanlei wastes no time. He orders everyone to suit up and follow them into the contaminated zone, fully aware of the risk. The team complies instantly, sealing their gear before stepping carefully into the danger. Inside the dead forest, doubts surface. Why hasn't the source appeared? Weren't the vines the only mobile threat? The desolation weakens. 5 minutes in, density drops to 25. Hanlei stays calm and tells them to probe further. Thandanguyen answers without hesitation that she's ready. Both kneel and press their palms to the ground. Energy streams sink deep, sweeping through the earth in search of traces. They jolt upright at the same time, eyes wide. They realize the source has already been excavated. A scientist stammers in disbelief. Dug up impossible. Hanlei rises, mind racing. Anyone who could do this deserves serious attention. An aide notes the absence of lingering high-tier energy. Hanlei opens a three-dimensional panel and scrolls fast. Data analysis locks onto a suspect whose path matches both anomalies. The file transfers to Than Nguyen. She reads the name on the screen, Phuong Dish. Hanlei instructs her to take all related files. This person likely matches a prior contact. What happens next is up to her organization. Thunya nods once. She understands. 2 hours later, in a secure hideout, Phuong Dich inspects his gains with a grin. He jokes at the tiny flower about lacking even a pot, then praises the little house he chose. He treats it like a partner he personally raised. The small white flower rests quietly. He studies it, satisfied. The wild attribute is rare, subtle, and deadly useful, especially in real combat. He likes its plain look. If Lin Wei saw it, suspicion would never spark. On the battlefield, ordinary appearances hide the sharpest fangs. Tricks decide survival. His phone suddenly rings. The caller ID reads Lao Vuong. He stiffens in surprise. His childhood friend from the army, gone 3 years without a meeting. Vuong Luong. Real name Wang Liang. Lived next door since grade school. They were inseparable until that day he announced he'd enlist to defend the country. A familiar voice laughs, saying he's already back. He suggests drinks at their old spot. The invitation hits fast, and he scrambles to respond. Vuong Luong lowers his voice, half teasing, half serious. He has a secret to share, one that might knock him out cold. The call ends. Elsewhere, tension tightens in a military briefing room. A subordinate reports in, asking if the target's safety can be ensured if he's not the right one. The female commander taps the table once, sharp and cold. She orders them to focus, avoid excess force, and offer guidance if he proves irrelevant. At their usual bar, Phuong Dich reunites with his friend. Glasses clash, laughter surges. He studies Vuong Luong's hardened frame and knows the army was unforgiving. The once witty boy now feels steady and restrained. Vuong Luong reflects on 3 years of service, then asks how things have been. He answers calmly about college and exams. As he swirls his drink, memories of a past life surface. He knows he never met this friend again back then. Once chaos swallowed the world. As a soldier, Vuong Luong likely died quietly in some forgotten conflict. Watching him now, he wonders if this time he can change that fate. Before he can think further, Vuong Luong hesitates, then asks if he's seen anything strange lately, things like monsters or zombies from movies. Phuong Dich instantly caught the hidden edge in those words. Military intel gathering was normal, but this question tested boundaries. He raised his guard while acting confused, tilting his head as if clueless and asking what his friend actually meant. Wang Luong covers his face, wrestling with himself. After a long pause, he chooses honesty. He says the future will erase today's values, that education and wealth will soon turn meaningless, and everything will be forced to restart from zero. He listens without interrupting, but an alarm screams inside his mind as the words sink in. A regular soldier would never leak such information without lethal consequences. This means he's already flagged by the military and placed under silent observation, even if no one says it aloud. He exhales slowly, while pretending ignorant. He understands his friend risked punishment just to warn him about the coming abnormal era. The sharp ring of a phone slices through the tense air. Wang Luong answers, his expression hardening instantly. Orders demand his return within 10 minutes to a designated site. He apologizes quickly, saying duty calls. He adds that the task is urgent and suggests leaving immediately. He asks if it involves spiritual energy restoration and offers to follow along without hesitation. Wang Luong freezes mid-step, spinning back in disbelief at what he just heard. He walks up, pats his shoulder, and insists on going together. He calmly explains that he trusts his friend, knows he means no harm, and suspects this mission connects to the celestial disturbances. He adds that if the Spirit Energy Association handles monsters, then the military's role must hide deeper truths he wants to uncover. With no better option, they head straight to Zone 19's military base. the moment he arrives. The dense spiritual pressure shocks him, far surpassing the Black River Dragon area. At the fortified gate, Wang Luong reports in and clears verification. Once approved, he leads him into the heart of the base. The ground suddenly erupts. A violent explosion tears through the air, smoke and debris swallowing the scene. Ahead, troops channel spiritual energy to restrain a massive, savage beast writhing under glowing chains. The mutated hellhound spits flames despite its bindings, scorching soldiers nearby. He narrows his eyes and quietly judges that the creature is undergoing tribute fusion. A commanding female officer answers instead of Wang Luong. She confirms it's a dual-attribute demon beast of darkness and fire, currently mid-fusion, brutally injuring multiple soldiers. She snaps orders, then glares at Wang Luong for bringing an outsider inside. He hurriedly explains, but her sharp tone cuts him off. She declares the situation critical and orders him to join the counterattack unit immediately. He complies at once. Her gaze then flicks toward him, suspicious of his weak fluctuations, before dismissing the thought due to the urgency. She warns that entry means accepting life or death and absolute secrecy. He nods obediently, showing no resistance. Command shifts fully to combat. She calls out names without explanation. Each soldier responds instantly, rushing into position and releasing spiritual power in perfect coordination toward the beast. She also raises her custom firearm, aiming without hesitation. A lightning-like shot tears through the air, slamming into the beast's chest. It screams, but the impact only drives it deeper into madness as dark energy surges. The hellhound lunges wildly. A frontline female soldier freezes, barely reacting as danger closes in. At the final instant, a bolt of lightning crashes down, striking the beast's face and halting the fatal blow. She fires again and shouts for discipline, ordering distance and a swift finish before full evolution. He watches silently, impressed by their precision. Every member moves like a cog in a lethal machine, proving teamwork can surpass raw individual power. His expression suddenly twists pale as realization hits. He shouts for everyone to retreat, warning they cannot win. Thunder detonates overhead. The beast howls as rocks fly and the ground shatters. Its evolution completes. Emergency alerts escalate. Retreat is forbidden. Soldiers brace themselves as the creature's size multiplies. A suffocating aura pours out, heat and darkness fully fused. Reports confirm the mutation is complete. The monster's bloodshot gaze locks onto its nearest prey. Wang Luong stands frozen beneath that killing intent. The officer screams a warning. He clenches his teeth as the massive claw slams downward. Wang Luong reacts fast, but still gets blasted away by the overwhelming force. The officer urgently updates the situation, announcing the Forbidden Zone threat has risen to a higher level and combat protocols are changing. Before she finishes, Wang Luong's body crashes toward him, blood spraying as internal injuries rupture. He catches him instantly, asking if he's alive. Dark corrosion spreads along his arm, but Wang Luong forces a grin, saying it backfired while reinforcing the collar and that soldiers of Zone 19 don't fall so easily. Fuang Dix watches his badly wounded friend still clinging to duty, and his expression hardens as chill floods his eyes, the air around him turning heavy with restrained intent. Colum slams her weapon into the ground with a sharp crash, her voice cutting through chaos as she orders everyone to use any tactic necessary, even if it costs their lives. She and her soldiers lock their stance, united by one goal: stopping the B-level monster from escaping the Forbidden Zone at all costs. Before she finishes, a black blur shoots past her like a storm. She snaps around and shouts, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. He doesn't stop or look back, only leaving a cold answer behind, reminding her that he isn't a soldier and owes no obedience. He charges straight at the beast, lightning raging around his arm, intent clear and merciless. Thunder explodes as he surges forward, sneering at the monster's arrogance while lightning tears the air apart. The evil dog slashes down with glowing claws meant to crush bone, but he leaps aside with overwhelming speed, avoiding the strike cleanly. His fist crashes down toward the beast's head, thunder roaring as he declares judgment. The blow detonates on impact, hurling the monster into the ground. The earth splits, debris blasting outward as soldiers struggle to remain standing under the shockwave. Shock ripples through the ranks as disbelief spreads that a B-level exotic beast, one even Kolam couldn't suppress alone, was just overwhelmed. Wang Liang gapes, staring in disbelief before turning to Kolam and asking if that figure could truly be his brother. And she answers with a firm nod. Nyunanga stares at the lightning-wreathed figure standing before the fallen beast, realizing the rumors about him were no exaggeration. Yet the monster still twitches. Seeing this, his gaze turns ruthless as he orders everyone to retreat, deciding there's only one way left to end it. Kolam signals an immediate fallback, her curiosity burning. A B-level threat should require sacrifice and teamwork, yet he dominates it alone, wielding terrifying lightning power. He raises his right hand skyward, lightning blazing so bright it seems ready to tear the heavens apart. Forcing Kolam to admit his standing would be elite even in Ha Kingdom. Her thoughts shatter as he turns his arm into a conduit, pulling every trace of lightning in the area toward himself, leaving her stunned by the implications. Dark clouds churn as thunder splits the sky, massive blue bolts crashing down like raging electric dragons. He steps forward, drops his hand, and calls down a towering pillar of lightning that obliterates the dying beast, leaving all witnesses in awe of his tyranny. Without sparing the scorched remains a glance, he turns away coldly, the battle already finished in his mind. Li Nengok shivers, clutching her neck as she mutters that even watching made her dizzy. Admitting lightning is far more terrifying than dark corrosion. Leaving the battlefield, he walks to his injured friend and says it's over, while Wang Liang ignores his pain and rushes over, laughing in relief. Seeing his friend return to his old, cheerful self, he bursts out laughing, joking about repaying kindness with violence, making Wang Liang scratch his head apologetically. Wang Liang admits he suspected his friend was extraordinary and dragged him into danger anyway, while he scolds him affectionately for acting distant after 3 years. Kolam steps in, interrupting them, and solemnly extends her hand, formally thanking him for his assistance. He smiles calmly and shakes her hand, brushing it off as simply protecting a friend. With the crisis resolved, Kolam apologizes for the lack of introductions and asks him to leave contact information so she can report truthfully to her superiors. He agrees easily, while Wang Liang smirks, amused at seeing his commander treat his friend with such respect. Kolam then formally invites him to join the Ha Kingdom army, admitting his power surpasses many cultivators they've recruited, though her rank alone may be insufficient. He lightly teases her, asking if she thinks she lacks the authority to invite him. She answers honestly, saying higher command will likely come themselves, and that earlier actions were never meant to endanger him. He responds sincerely, expressing respect for soldiers willing to sacrifice to protect others. Admitting her earlier words truly moved him. Touched by the recognition, Kolam offers a quiet thanks in return. He proposes future cooperation, offering help when needed, provided the military never interferes with his personal cultivation or restricts him. His blunt conditions catch Kolam off guard, forcing her to pause and consider how such terms would be reported upward. Having said his piece, he prepares to leave, and Kolam agrees, stating they still must handle the monster's remains and will arrange his return. He strolls away with hands in his pockets, thoughts clear about the military's role in guarding dangerous, spirit-rich zones. He understands they stand as both cultivators and shields, forming a wall between civilians and supernatural threats. Watching him disappear, Kolam remarks to Wang Liang that his friend revealed only a fragment of his true strength, like the tip of an iceberg. Wang Liang proudly pats his chest and jokes that if command won't recruit him, then maybe his closest friend should handle the invitation himself. Kolam catches her subordinate getting smug and immediately pushes his head down, crushing the attitude. She orders him to help clean up and reminds him he's nowhere near the captain. Wang Longtiu sulks, then answers, "Yes, sir," that night in Fuangdiche's old apartment. A golden flicker spills through the window, even exposed. He hides his real ace and shows only lightning, sitting cross-legged. He cultivates and judges the military's attitude as a potential advantage. One fact locks in his lightning attribute is insanely rare, possibly unique, and it hard counters the dark power the army desperately wants. He breathes deep and weighs every angle. They tried to pull him in without threats, offered him a voice, a fast road to growth, and top-tier intel. In this new era, each faction has its job. The army becomes the night watchman, a blade in the dark and a shield for the nation, holding the front line when shadows move. The Spirit Energy Association plugs the gaps, sweeps up what slips into the city, and fights to keep daily life from collapsing as the world resets. Spiritual energy around him compresses into a bright sphere at his dantian. His breathing method keeps hauling in pure power, even without leveling after taking the wild attribute. The forbidden zone filled him to the brim, and he senses a breakthrough forming. Outside, the market stays noisy and packed. Lamwai returns from shopping with both hands full, wondering if her cousin made it back yet. She heads toward the building, thinking about dinner. If he's home, she'll test her cooking and see if she's improved. Then the night snaps. A blazing golden pillar of spiritual energy erupts upward, ripping open the quiet sky like a flare. Lamwai jolts, eyes wide. In the glow, a massive golden demon king axe begins forming overhead, signaling rising demonic pressure. Then she feels the surge from that direction and shivers. Her earlier guess was wrong. This aura is brutal, and it doesn't feel like a simple demon realm push. Dark clouds pile in, swallowing the sky. Spiritual energy pours down like a waterfall as thunder detonates. Lamwai panics, wondering if a cultivator is breaking through into a spiritual realm. The golden axe trembles violently, as if confirming it. She whispers that the Demon King realm won't hold much longer. A force shatters the axe, its fragments dissolving and reforming into a golden divine hand. She mutters in horror about a spiritual realm being born, then freezes, unable to process the godlike scene unfolding right beside her. In the military surveillance room, sirens scream as warnings flood the screens. The abnormal value hits 99 with magnetic fluctuations 5 kilometers southeast. Hanley stiffens in shock. He stands fast and demands answers, then orders all units to move out. Thon Nguyen turns pale, fearing this level of power could wipe out a city, yet it never showed before. A 3D map flashes up, simulating the surge and lighting a corner of the city like a second sun. The room buzzes new spiritual realm expert. Incoming catastrophe. Or both. Hanley grabs the radio and calls headquarters for immediate support, demanding the best gear and resources, plus large-scale destructive weapons if needed. Before the call ends, a soldier rushes in with new intel. The alert is lifted. It's not an anomaly, it's a cultivator ranking up. The room jolts like a bomb went off. Back in the dorm, he exhales hard after finishing his breakthrough, feeling the pressure finally settle. He has stepped into the one-star spirit creation realm. He checks himself and scratches his head, confused that he only feels lighter, with no dramatic change. His phone buzzes with a new message from Vuong Luang under the nickname Sam Luang Son Hao Han. A viral link screams that Tantan University's sports field is burning, and Vuong Luang warns it's the second anomaly in the contaminated area. He stares at the screen, thinking Wang Liang isn't wrong. Being flashy invites trouble, so he stays cautious with both factions and keeps his Yang Flame attribute and Crimson Fire saber power hidden as a real trump card. The door opens and Lam Wai walks in, announcing she's back. She lifts her food bags and asks if he ate, offering what she bought. He keeps staring at his phone and tells her to leave it. He'll eat later. Lam Wai sighs, resigned. Watching him ignore food for his screen makes her let out another tired breath. In her mind, he has no vices and acts upright, but he's painfully lazy, staying home like a corpse, skipping university, and living on his phone. She admits university barely matters now. Yet his life attitude still worries her as she drags herself toward the bedroom. She sprawls on the bed, thinking cultivators chase fate while her cousin drifts carefree. Her thoughts return to that divine-level figure who shook the heavens. Then she decides she'll protect her cousin to repay his kindness. He keeps watching coverage of the Thantan University fire, brow tightening as he reconstructs the pattern. Last time was heat, now it's open fire, still tied to a Yang tribute. The clips show flames spreading fast, nearby trees and beds reduced to ash, and the zone sealed while netizens shout and even special forces appear. The video ends too soon, leaving him irritated. This looks worse than Bachman, and he can't predict this Yang attribute. If he wants answers, he needs to contact Ko Lam first. Next morning at Tantan University's gate, reporters pack in, shoving at soldiers and firing questions about the unextinguished fire, injuries, and why student safety details aren't being reported. In the chaos, two figures walk in side by side. Guards snap to attention and open the gate for them, triggering angry complaints from reporters left outside. It's Fang Diash with Kolam. They ignore the noise and head to the stadium. Kolam stares at the ruin and asks if this is divine fire, then explains the government calls it heavenly fire. She recalls a past forest blaze that ignited without warning and couldn't be stopped, only endured until it consumed everything. Then she scans the area. Knowing wandering blindly won't help, Kolam turns and says she'll visit the principal's office, asking if he'll come. He chooses to stay and inspect, so she nods, tells him to be careful, and leaves, alone. He walks down the steps and approaches the yellow barricade, then steps over and crouches by the dust at the stadium edge. The ground has cooled and holds no remaining heavenly fire energy to collect, so the case isn't that simple. While he's deep in thought, a familiar woman's voice cuts in behind him, making him jolt. She sounds stunned as she asks why he's here. Fuang Deech spins around and freezes when he recognizes his ex, So Than Li. The girl in glasses beside her sneers, mocking that this is the ex who barely scraped into college. Fenley gives a small nod in confirmation. The bespectacled girl pats Thanlei's shoulder, but her sharp words stab straight at him. She tells him to wake up, claiming he still clings to feelings. Yet the gap between them is obvious and impossible to cross, urging him to let go. He stands there, baffled, a giant question mark hanging in his mind as he wonders when he ever said he still cared. Curious students start crowding in. Some recognize Than Li, others complain about a strange boy inside a restricted zone, grumbling about poor security and unwanted outsiders. The girl with glasses steps forward, blocking him and warning him off, boasting that Than Li is now the school's pride with countless elites chasing her, then threatens to call the police. Than Li stays quiet, secretly shaken. She doubts he came for her, yet her heart beats faster, torn between pride and confusion. Just as the tension thickens, Kolam appears and breaks the scene, asking calmly if this is his friend. He glances at Than Li once and replies flatly that she's only a high school classmate. Nothing more. Kolam hums, clearly amused. Kolam's military aura is overwhelming, the scar on her face sharpening her presence into something intimidating and mysterious. One look from her makes Than Li and her friend shiver, silently wondering who this woman is and how she knows him. Leaning closer, Kolam whispers that the fire case is worse than expected, and the principal will guide them to the source, adding that he must come as a special advisor. As soon as he agrees, the university president arrives personally, security clearing the way as he orders everyone to disperse and seals the sports field. The students gasp in shock, stammering as they recognize the elderly principal stepping in. The cane-bearing principal radiates stern authority, making Than Li wonder why such an elusive figure would appear for this woman and him. The girl in glasses smirks, assuming the principal came to deal with intruders. Instead, under heavy guard, the principal stops before Kolam and him with unexpected warmth. He shakes their hands respectfully, thanking the advisor introduced by Kolam and admitting his fear that the fires might endanger students. The principal bows deeply, formally asking for help with the sports field disaster. He hurriedly helps the old man up, while Thon Lei stands frozen, staring at the principal, bowing to the man she once rejected. As the crowd is driven back, whispers spread about his background and status, leaving Thon Lei stranded amid disbelief. Mocking voices sting her ears, saying even if she chased him now, she might not be worthy. She stands silent, unable to move. At the mountainside north gate, the principal personally leads him in, recounting how fires erupted after Kim Duong vanished and how trucks failed to extinguish them. He pauses, shaken, then explains that multiple fields ignited, with flames falling from the sky and floating unnaturally. They stop before a ruined stadium. The principal points out that only this field still burns. He looks up, the stench of scorching heat hitting hard as he silently assesses the scene. He asks if the basketball hoop was the ignition point. The principal nods helplessly, admitting only this fire resists extinction. Column's detector vibrates, flashing at 11. She explains that exceeding the limit means isolation, as such anomalies are disasters to civilians. Before she finishes, the reading spikes violently from 11 to 60. Sirens scream. Colum's face tightens as she declares the threshold far too high, warning that the entire city could be threatened. The principal trembles, only to see him calmly ignore warnings and step past the barrier toward the fire. The heavenly flames react instantly, roaring and hurling a massive fireball at him. The explosion rocks the area, alarms turning red as heat surges and readings skyrocket, leaving Colum stunned and the principal drenched in sweat. The barrier is swallowed as the fire twists into a ferocious dragon guarding its domain, making everyone outside panic. Unlike them, he remains composed, walking straight into the inferno as spiritual energy forms a thin yet solid shield around him. The barrier blocks the flames, but he realizes he can't touch the fire's core while maintaining it. Preventing system interaction, he advances toward the hoop, deciding he must reach the origin as the fire dragon lunges violently. He extends a hand, expression cold and unwavering, showing no trace of fear. At the critical moment, he drops the diamond shield entirely, exposing himself to the raging heavenly fire. Roaring flames crash over him, forcing him to brace low and steady himself against the overwhelming surge. Fuang Dix endures direct contact with the true heavenly fire, his body screaming under the heat. He clenches his teeth and waits. The system responds at last, detecting violent heavenly fire fluctuations, and he laughs through the pain, convinced this power must be absorbed. The system surges into full operation, compiling at maximum speed. A notification flashes, announcing the successful acquisition of the Heavenly Fire attribute technique. 9 dragons, Heavenly Fire. Seal, filling him with pride. As heavenly flames explode outward, another notice appears. The new method unlocks instantly, extracting attributes without manual learning as fire rages around him. The sky bleeds red. 9 blazing dragons descend like falling stars. He closes his eyes as crimson markings bloom across his face, and the system confirms full fire attribute assimilation. The markings spread over his cheeks and brow, circling his eyes, each pattern carrying the authority of a dominant dragon. When the 9th mark completes, he opens blood-red eyes brimming with divine pressure and shouts the technique's name as heavy chains begin to emerge. Thick red-black obsidian chains burst from behind him, clashing like metal as they coil through the air. The chains bind the 9 fire dragons, tightening as they struggle, crushing them into a layered seal. Watching from afar, Colum senses a familiar sealing aura seen only in high-level military techniques. He raises a hand and slowly retracts his power, drawing the chains back as they spiral into his palm. The violent heavenly fire compresses into a tiny blazing sphere, wrapped tight by chains like a bound star. Though the fire roars within, every attempt to break free fails against absolute suppression. With the seal complete, he gently returns the sphere to its origin, imprisoning it permanently. He warns the principal to keep the stadium sealed, ensuring the fire never spreads again. Colum stands silently, lips pressed tight, watching the man who just neutralized a city-level threat alone. her thoughts tangled with awe. He jokes about the school's many sports fields, easing the principal into laughter. Before more words follow, Kolam steps in, asking for a private talk. The principal quickly excuses himself, alone with her. He tilts his head, puzzled, and asks what's wrong. Kolam speaks bluntly, praising how well he hides his true depth. He gives an awkward smile, brushing it off as the fire being troublesome. Her expression sharpens as she calls him out, saying she knows he's concealing both talent and realm. When he only smiles, she sighs and drops it, admitting cultivators all keep secrets, especially ones as dangerous as him. She explains sincerely that in this era of upheaval, someone like him is equivalent to a living strategic weapon, and every major faction will want him. Shrugging lightly, she adds that her own motives exist too, and urges him to think ahead before recruitment pressures arrive. He answers honestly, asking why neither she nor Vuong Luong dared invite him into their forbidden zone. She replies without hesitation, saying that zone is terrifyingly strong, almost excessive in its power. She confirms they are busy beyond measure. He nods, realizing even elite forces are stretched thin, hinting at unseen disasters. She signals for him to follow, ending the talk. As they walk to the canteen, his thoughts churn over how even top forces are struggling. Based on her words, someone in that group has likely reached spirit creation, perhaps beyond. A faint unease settles in him. Spiritual energy recovery is close, yet his preparation still feels lacking. He reflects on Heavenly Fire's nature, uncontrolled and absolute, perfect for erasing endlessly reproducing anomalies. His eyes brighten as an idea sparks, and his fist tightens in resolve. He realizes this attribute pairs perfectly with the Crimson Flame Blade, amplifying its lethality. Days later, he heads alone behind the mountain to test it, stopping short at a massive warning sign declaring the area dangerous. He finds it suspicious, knowing the army couldn't react this fast, and suspects the Spirit Energy Association blocked the area for him. Remembering Than Nguyen's enthusiasm, he laughs, deciding to accept the unspoken permission. The smile fades as a strange sound reaches his ears. He stiffens, scanning the forest, sensing something nearby. The rustle comes from above. His perception sharpens as he identifies a weaker aura similar to before, belonging to a mutated ape, hanging from a branch, red eyes glowing. The creature watches cautiously instead of charging blindly. He smiles faintly, resting a hand on his sword, calmly gauging whether the prey is worth striking. The system responds at once, confirming fusion of heavenly fire into the blade, forming a supreme flame attribute. He approves the process without hesitation as blazing fire engulfs the sword, heat warping the air around it. Turning with burning intent, he anticipates the result of merging indestructible fire with his true crimson blade. Sensing exposure and crushing pressure, the ape screams in terror as he slashes, releasing sword energy shaped like twin fire dragons that roar forward. Phuong Dix faces the heavenly fire head-on, his body pushed to the brink as scorching waves tear through him. He clenches his jaw and waits. The system finally reacts, confirming violent heavenly fire fluctuations, and he laughs through the agony, determined to claim it. The system immediately ramps up to maximum load, compiling without pause. A clear prompt appears, announcing the successful acquisition of the Nine Dragons Heavenly Fire Seal, filling him with fierce satisfaction. As the flames spiral violently, another notice triggers. The new cultivation method unlocks on its own, extracting attributes while the fire storms higher. The sky turns blood red. 9 blazing dragons crash down like falling stars. He shuts his eyes as crimson patterns spread across his face, the system confirming full fire attribute integration. The markings crawl over his cheeks and brow, circling his eyes, each line carrying the dominance of a ruling dragon. When the 9th mark completes, he opens blood-red pupils radiating authority and calls out the seal. As heavy chains surge forth, thick obsidian chains streak out behind him, clashing loudly as they twist through the air. The chains lock onto the 9 fire dragons, tightening as they struggle, crushing them into a layered seal. From afar, Colum recognizes the unmistakable aura of high-tier sealing. He raises a hand and slowly draws back his power, the chains collapsing into a vortex and returning to his palm. The raging heavenly fire compresses into a tiny blazing sphere, bound tightly like a caged star. The fire roars in defiance, but every attempt to break free is utterly suppressed. With the seal complete, he calmly returns the sphere to its origin, permanently imprisoning it. He warns the principal to keep the stadium sealed so the fire never spreads again. Colum stands silent, lips pressed tight, watching the man who neutralized a city-level threat alone, her thoughts tangled with awe and caution. He jokes lightly about the school having plenty of sports fields, easing the tension and drawing laughter from the principal. The principal quickly steps aside at Colum's signal, leaving the two alone as she studies him closely. She speaks bluntly, praising how deeply he hides his true depth. He only smiles awkwardly, brushing it off as the fire being troublesome. Her gaze sharpens as she calls him out, saying she knows he's concealing both talent and realm. When he offers no reply, she sighs and lets it go. Admitting secrecy is normal for cultivators, especially dangerous ones. She explains sincerely that in this era of upheaval, someone like him equals a living strategic weapon, and every major faction will want him. She shrugs lightly, adding that her own motives exist too, and urges him to think ahead before recruitment pressure arrives. He answers honestly, asking why neither she nor Vuong Luong dared invite him into their forbidden zone. She replies plainly, saying that zone is terrifyingly strong, almost excessive in power. She confirms they're overwhelmed with tasks. He nods, realizing even elite forces are stretched thin by unseen disasters. She signals to move on. As they head for the canteen, his thoughts churn over how even top-tier forces are struggling. From her words, someone there has likely reached spirit creation, perhaps even beyond. A faint unease settles in him. Spiritual energy recovery is close, yet his preparation still feels insufficient. He reflects on Heavenly Fire's nature, absolute and unrestrained, perfect for erasing endlessly regenerating anomalies. His eyes light up as an idea sparks, and his fist tightens in resolve. He realizes this attribute pairs perfectly with his crimson flame blade, amplifying its lethality. Days later, he heads alone behind the mountain to test it, halting at a massive warning sign declaring the area dangerous. He finds it suspicious, knowing the army couldn't react this fast, and suspects the Spirit Energy Association cleared the land for him. Remembering Than Nguyen's enthusiasm, he laughs and decides to accept the unspoken permission. The smile fades as a strange sound reaches him. He stiffens, scanning the forest with sharpened senses. The rustle comes from above. He identifies a weaker aura similar to before, belonging to a mutated ape, hanging from a branch, red eyes glowing. The creature watches cautiously instead of charging blindly. He smiles faintly, resting a hand on his sword, calmly judging whether the prey is worth striking. The system responds instantly, confirming fusion of heavenly fire into the blade, forming a supreme flame attribute. He approves without hesitation as blazing fire engulfs the sword, heat warping the air itself. Turning with burning intent, he anticipates the result of merging indestructible fire with his true blade. Sensing exposure and crushing pressure, the ape screams in terror as he slashes, releasing sword energy shaped like twin fire dragons that roar forward, even at the edge of collapse. Lam Wai forces out her final spark of spiritual power and hurls it forward in a desperate counterstrike, the air erupting with a violent roar that shakes the night. The unleashed energy rips straight through the darkness, blowing apart the monster's twisted head as its body locks up, then slumps to the ground like rotten clay when she inspects the decaying remains. The seductive woman freezes in horror, seeing countless human faces warped in pain. Lam Wai grimly concludes the truth: those people became part of the monster, a cruel attempt to turn them all into food. Pale and trembling, The woman grips her bleeding wound and gasps that their attacks can't pierce the black bone barrier. Their spiritual energy keeps draining, and the source of the anomaly is still unknown. The corpse dissolves back into the black bones as if it never existed, and she admits bitterly that the thing is waiting for them to run dry, ready to toy with them once they're helpless. Fear seeps in as despair spreads. Then a massive blood-red eye slowly emerges from the fog of bones, drifting closer and closer. The eye doesn't stay whole, it writhes, the flesh splitting apart until countless smaller eyes form, packed together in a nauseating cluster. The sheer number makes skin crawl, a living nightmare pressing in from all sides, suffocating any hope of escape. Watch the energy shifts. Lin Wei shouts sharply, warning everyone to stay alert and never lower their guard. The moment the words leave her mouth, a chill crawls up her spine. Instinct screaming danger as the ground beneath her flashes into freezing ice and cracks echo sharply. From above, a predator's gaze pins her down, hundreds of bloodshot eyes glowing as they lock onto her, numbing her body and trapping her in paralyzing despair. Darkness surges like a black tide, swallowing everything as shadowy arms reach out, dragging her toward an endless abyss while her consciousness fades. Regret floods in too late. She blames her own overconfidence, knowing the path of cultivation is paved with blood, and reaches out blindly for a hope she may never touch again. Tears slide down her face as she finally stops resisting and accepts what feels like an unavoidable end. Thunder suddenly shatters the sky, and a blade of brilliant blue light rips through the darkness as Fang Yi steps in, smiling calmly against the chaos. He looks at his stunned cousin, arriving at the very last moment, while her eyes widen in disbelief. Tears still cling to her lashes as she struggles to accept what she's seeing unfold right in front of her. His lightning attribute, known for suppressing evil, bursts out and tears apart the illusionary fog, instantly clearing the battlefield around the two girls. Lam Wei snaps back to awareness, still standing beside the unconscious, alluring woman, muttering in shock as she realizes her cousin truly saved them and is far from ordinary. She suddenly spots the grotesque, many-eyed creature creeping up from behind him and screams a warning about the anomaly closing in from the right. He stays calm, grips the sword, and ignites it with blazing flames, the heat surging outward as he challenges the dark attribute head-on. Without retreating, he swings in one clean motion, fire and technique merging into a single, overwhelming strike that erupts into a roaring dragon of flames. The fire dragon charges forward, consuming the monster as its muffled screams fade, the body collapsing into complete stillness. A towering wall of fire rises to shield the two girls, and Lam Wei quickly supports the charming woman as she weakly wakes, confused and terrified. Surrounded by flames, the woman panics, thinking they've fallen into hell, until Lam Wei calmly assures her they're alive and the anomaly is already gone. The fire fades as he retracts his power, turning back with an easy smile and casually asking if anyone has eaten breakfast yet. Recognition hits as the woman blurts out that he was the one who saved them in Yanghuo Town, and he scratches his head, embarrassed at being found out so easily. Lam Wei finally connects the dots, shocked that the legendary fire attribute expert everyone praised is actually her cousin. He only laughs it off, choosing silence instead of explaining further. The excited woman grabs Lam Wei's shoulders, rambling about his feats and legends, leaving her stunned by the realization of his true status. Lam Wei quickly reasons it out, recalling both lightning and fire far beyond her level. Realizing he's a rare genius with multiple advanced attributes, he interrupts with a serious question, pointing out the anomaly's danger and asking why only the two of them were present and where the rest of the team went. Hesitant, the young woman explains the team's collapse, hidden missions, supervision, and absences that left them short-handed. She lowers her head, admitting she underestimated the enemy after her breakthrough, believing there would be no real danger. He recalls the earlier chaos, noting how only the charming woman stayed behind to protect Lam Wei, silently admiring her loyalty when it mattered most. Accepting the situation, he decides to be honest, proposing that since his identity is known, they should trust each other and form a team. He warns them to keep it secret. And she eagerly agrees. Overwhelmed by the sudden stroke of luck, he waits calmly as Lam Wai breaks into tears. Deeply moved, realizing she had been protected all along. Smiling through tears, she feels warmth on her lonely cultivation path, grateful to have family beside her, and thanks him sincerely. She cheerfully promises to share extra eggs tonight, then checks a message and announces that Sister Lam has just posted a new mission. The system interface lights up, announcing a quest to gather items inside the Dark Zone tied to the Dark attribute, warning all registrants to consider their choice carefully before committing. She reads the notice and rubs her chin, wondering if her younger cousin is linked to the Dark attribute and asking what the Dark Zone truly is. Lam Wai hesitates, then explains that the Dark Abyss lies on the Dark border and is strictly forbidden by the lower nation. She adds that all adventurers must avoid it, as most recent anomalies trace back there, and the government has never fully explored it due to past disasters and heavy casualties. Hearing this, the alluring young woman shrugs it off, saying old Sister Lam rarely explains missions anyway, while suggesting they ask for details just in case. Fang Yi appears at this point, silently piecing things together, growing curious about Jia Lam's identity since only someone with immense authority could issue missions tied to such a forbidden region. After some thought, Lam Wai sends a message asking to register and requests details, receiving a surprisingly fast and thorough reply about collecting rotten flowers and the increased danger within the Dark Zone. Jia Lam warns that all anomalies inside carry dark attributes. Risks are far higher than before, and teams are strongly advised before signing up. Another message follows, stating the mission may involve an S-rank anomaly with an extremely high fatality rate, urging everyone to think carefully before proceeding. Elsewhere, Jia Lam strides forward confidently with elite guards behind her, quietly wondering whether the person she's targeting will accept the invitation. Reading the message, he laughs, recognizing the hidden challenge within the words and sensing that this woman clearly knows what kind of cultivator she's dealing with. Neither side reveals their true identity, yet the silent test has already begun, and he decides there's no reason to decline such an open provocation. His curiosity ignites at the mention of an unexplored forbidden land, excitement surging as the thought of stepping into that mystery takes hold. He quickly replies that their team has 3 members, while Jia Lam calmly continues forward, confident that a worthy cultivator will eventually arrive. The assistant worries aloud about the team's size, but Jia Lam dismisses it, stating she never forces anyone and that those who belong will come. Sensing confusion, she clarifies that the mission isn't meant to send cultivators to their deaths, but serves a far greater purpose. She explains that collecting rotten flowers is essential to preserving future strength for the lower nation, even if the cost is steep. On the train, Lam Wai and the charming woman scroll through news while he stands nearby with a calm posture, sword resting quietly at his side. In a hospital room, Jia Lam and her assistants stand solemnly by an elderly man's bed, sorrow filling her eyes as she clasps his frail hand. She whispers a vow, swearing to gather as many rotten flowers as necessary, no matter the cost. The old man lies motionless, his body marked by spreading red veins, and Jia Lam steels herself, knowing he must be saved. As the nation's only Diamond Realm cultivator, his revival would become their greatest leverage once spiritual energy fully returns. An assistant urges her to value her own health, reminding her that the mission means nothing if she collapses. Her emotions erupt as she snaps back, declaring her life matters because it was bought with the sacrifices of her comrades. The anger fades, replaced by a familiar headache and deep guilt flickering in her violet eyes. She leans against the bed, apologizes for losing control, and assures them it's not time for medicine yet. Painful memories surge despite her efforts, tightening around her heart without warning. A battlefield from years past flashes through her mind, bodies scattered, blood-soaked ground, and desperate retreat orders echoing endlessly. She remembers crying out in refusal, unable to accept the loss unfolding before her. Her captain forces his remaining spiritual power into her, commanding her to survive and carry their will back home. She snaps back to reality, cold and composed, realizing the truth about the wilted flowers and how easily the mission could fail. Time passes as the group continues forward without rest, exhaustion slowly wearing them down. The charming woman complains about the distance and jokingly asks why they can't just fly, only to be reminded that spiritual energy doesn't allow such freedom. He ignores the chatter, eyes narrowed as he studies the shimmering energy ahead and the dense defensive line blocking the path. Even through layers of obstacles, he senses the oppressive dark aura seeping through, thick and nauseating. The alluring woman shivers instinctively, hugging herself as the chilling presence overwhelms her. Far more terrifying than any anomaly they faced before, Fang Yi sensed a crushing pressure settle over Lam Wei's shoulders. She forced a calm smile, urging her friend to hold on. They had already come too far to retreat now. Moving toward the assembly zone, he noticed many figures ahead. Lam Wei agreed, pointing out that this wasn't just greed for rewards. Since dark attribute threats were notoriously lethal, those anomalies carried death itself and showed instinctive hostility toward humans. Her unease grew as the city faced repeated dark incidents. His expression hardened. He had already confronted two of them directly. One was a warped rabbit, barely recognizable, closer to a monstrous rat. The other was a massive constrictor lurking near an abandoned factory. These creatures weren't mindless. They showed intelligence, coordination, and tactics far beyond early-stage mutations. They could even set traps and ambush teams, nearly wiping out an association squad, a memory that still weighed heavily. He studied the defensive barrier sealing the restricted zone, wondering if its systems surpassed others. While unease about a looming catastrophe crept in, anomalies were appearing faster than anyone could explain, nearing total loss of control. He gestured for the girls to move inside, knowing hesitation was no longer an option. Before the barrier, cultivators clustered in small groups, chatting casually. Tan Huyn stood among them, deeply absorbed in conversation. Mid-sentence, her gaze locked onto a familiar figure approaching from afar. She jolted and blurted out in shock that he had arrived, and even brought two girls with him. Realizing her voice carried, she turned away fast, covering her mouth in embarrassment. The green-haired girl beside her noticed and shook her shoulder, with no response. Tan Huyn closed her eyes, muttering prayers, only to hear him greet her moments later. He welcomed her presence warmly. She stiffened, recalling his military file and her earlier awkwardness, while whispers sparked about her relationship with him. Flustered, she waved her hands and denied everything loudly. He stepped in smoothly to diffuse the misunderstanding. Smiling, he jokingly introduced her as an association captain working with him. The tension vanished, though the label left her inwardly speechless. Their exchange was cut short by a heavy stomp. A middle-aged man strode forward, scoffing at their behavior. Armed and rugged, he lectured them with elder authority, criticizing the younger generation for lacking respect and discipline. His insinuation sparked the charming woman's temper. She prepared to lash out, but he stopped her with a subtle signal. Catching on, she switched tactics, mocking the man lightly and warning he might be the first to panic later. Before he could retort, an engine roared. An armored military vehicle rolled in, drawing all eyes as the man sneered knowingly. The vehicle halted, doors opening as a slender yet commanding figure stepped out, instantly commanding the crowd's attention. Whispers spread as recognition dawned. It was Jia Lam, the one who issued the summons. She exited fully, followed by disciplined soldiers. The crowd parted instinctively to clear her path. The alluring woman whispered in awe at her presence. He quietly guessed she was the one responsible for opening the way. Hearing this, Jia Lam glanced over briefly, then headed straight for the glowing blue barrier. She produced an ancient stone etched with patterns, the key required to unlock the seal. Channeling power into it, blue veins surfaced. The ground shook as the barrier split, revealing a dark passage like a gaping maw. A foul stench and ominous aura surged outward as low growls echoed. A firm voice announced the gates opening. With the barrier gone, a vortex of black mist churned behind her. She declared entry allowed and warned the flowers must remain uncontaminated. The cultivators listened in silence. Failure to meet conditions meant no reward. With no objections raised, the operation began. The man in red armor led his team first, muttering curses as he went, clearly displeased at being pushed forward. A younger teammate urged him to stop complaining, explaining how deaths would be recorded and compensated. The man fell silent and marched in. Behind them, Than Nguyen quietly assessed the remaining teams, noting hidden experts and balanced overall strength. He acknowledged the analysis, impressed that so many elites gathered for such a dangerous mission. Still, doubt lingered. One participant felt weaker than expected. Nearby, an assistant reported finalized numbers and difficulty levels to GLM. Inside the extreme dark zone, the world shifted completely, barren and lethal, filled with lifeless, twisted trees. The air grew thick and foul, branches clawing like specters, gloom pressing in from all sides. He took the lead, warning the group to stay close as darkness distorted vision. One teammate faltered, overwhelmed by the hostile energy. She couldn't hold it and vomited, only to hear that the feeling was shared by everyone there. Fang Yi. This scene isn't unusual. People nearby share similar levels, and the women at the front suddenly bend over, retching hard as if their bodies reject the place itself. Huin seizes the moment to explain calmly. Dark attributes differ from immortal cultivation. Think of it as corruption here. In the extreme dark zone, monsters react violently to it. Fuang Dix listens in silence while the hierarchy is laid out. B-rank beasts match Ghost Realm cultivators and control their range. A-rank beast rival Creation Realm experts. S ranks spell total disaster. Huin stresses that darkness here amplifies monsters. A normal B rank jumps at least one tier. Lin Wai freezes in shock, realizing this is new knowledge, then anxiously asks if Captain 2 is unharmed. Huin casually hides her breakthrough to the 3-star Demon Lord realm with laughter. She jokes that decay smells don't bother her team, especially after forcing her water mutation into ice. The charming woman admits her spiritual power feels heavily suppressed here. Thangyan agrees, warning that even 1-star spiritual realm elites have fallen. Fear spreads, and Amwai urges everyone forward. She scans the darkness and warns that figures ahead vanished. The group tightens formation, limits speech, and focuses spiritual power to avoid being exploited by black bones. He stays quiet, observing his body. No major discomfort appears. Enhanced Yang and Thunder attributes seem effective. Or perhaps his spirit realm breakthrough strengthened his energy. Elsewhere, Elder Dying cleaves a blocking beast in half, laughing loudly. Even monsters of the extreme dark zone fail to impress him. Elder Dang charges ahead, shouting for glory and rotten flowers. The elders follow, roaring with confidence and leaving the younger ones watching in awe. Back with Huangdi's group, the air grows colder as they descend. Lam Wai coughs violently, and the charming woman glances at Yi with clear concern. Hearing the cough, Fuangditch turns back. Blood ties matter, and he refuses to ignore his cousin. He steps beside Lam Wai, pats her back twice, and quietly releases a positive energy barrier. Her eyes widen as warmth spreads. The nausea and bone-freezing chill vanish instantly. She marvels at the spirit creation realm's power and praises the warmth of fire-like attributes. She reflects that such attributes absorb natural spiritual energy easily. Noting Captain Toe's ice mutation is equally rare. Realizing the confusion, the translator clarifies it isn't fire but yang. He reminds them the Northgate and University field incidents were handled by him. He explains that yang and heavenly fire differ. Shocked voices blurt out disbelief, 3 rare advanced attributes already. He closes his eyes, hides the existence of another wild attribute, and gives a vague nod. Keeping a trump card never hurts. He notices the charming woman trembling badly and teases her. She begs for warmth, mentioning her incomplete grasp of metal attributes. He agrees, amused. Startled by his pat, she jumps, then exhales as heat floods her body. Relief washes over her face. Nguyen's team stares at the odd scene and asks what exactly is happening. He generously offers the same help. Nguyen smiles. The blonde cheers, and the red-haired girl quickly turns, hands clasped in prayer. One by one, he pats their backs. Young protection envelops them, and laughter breaks out as tension melts away. The moment shatters when heavy footsteps thunder closer. Fang Yi warns sharply that something big is coming. Nguyen reacts instantly, blasting spiritual energy toward the sound, shouting in confusion. The attack hits nothing. A shadow lunges instead at the charming woman. She barely dodges as a massive black beast reveals itself. Lillian screams in alarm, identifying it as an A-rank beast. The woman freezes, staring at claws and fangs rushing closer. Nguyen Huyen summons razor-sharp ice shards to assist, launching them forward. The shards pass through as the beast dissolves into black bone mist. Huyen grits her teeth, realizing how troublesome this enemy is. Lam Wai rushes in but freezes as well. Fang Yi scans the area calmly and spots zombies closing in from behind. Half-human, half-demon zombies growl as black bones gather underfoot. Phuong Dit urgently warns the group as they're surrounded. With no hesitation, Phuong Dik steps forward, gripping his sword and shifting position to block them. Thuktan's passion ignites, eyes blazing red. He slashes forward, power surging straight at the enemy. Divine fire erupts from the blade. Two roaring fire dragons tear through the darkness. The explosion incinerates monsters instantly. Flames crackle, stench fills the air, and terrified cries echo before fading. With one strike, everything ends. Fang Yi rests his sword on his shoulder, smiling as he assures the team they're safe for now. Confusion follows when monsters mimic speech. Nguyen explains it may come from devouring humans. Warning, all here are boosted to A rank. From afar, Jia Lam watches silently behind a mask. Admiration shines in her eyes. Defeating two A-rank illusion beasts in one move is no small feat. As calm returns, Lin Wei remains tense. The charming woman struggles to stand, gasping under the pressure of higher realm suppression. Suddenly, an eerie sound echoes from somewhere nearby, freezing everyone in place. Fang Yi narrows his eyes, sensing something off. Lin Wei suddenly tilts her head, ears twitching as distant echoes roll in, then questions sharply whether the sound ahead is truly ocean waves. Her words end as the ground convulses violently, as if a colossal presence stirs below, throwing the group into chaos as everyone staggers to stay upright. Heavy footsteps thunder closer, mixed with sharp gunfire. A celestial cultivator flees in panic, firing wildly and screaming for everyone to run and stop fighting. Screams ripple through the space. Someone cries about a demon as pressure crashes down, weighing on shoulders like an unseen mountain. Ahead, roaring waves rage like an enraged sea. Countless pitch-black mutants surge like storm clouds, sending cultivators scattering with faces drained of color. The first to flee is the old man. Despair erupts as someone shouts that even legendary armies suffered here, while a black tsunami of death swallows the slow without mercy. Seeing this, Elder Dang's pride ignites. He halts, releases his defensive energy, and roars that government troops failing doesn't mean he will. With reckless courage, he charges straight into the surging darkness, bravery blazing as he fatally misjudges the dark tide's power. In an instant, his body vanishes beneath black waves, sinking. He realizes there are no fish here, only horrors far worse lurking within. Regret comes too late. Hidden monsters tear him apart as faint screams echo, warnings breaking apart amid the consuming dark. Elder Dang isn't alone. Countless ascendants share the same fate, dragged screaming into the abyss as survivors listen in frozen terror. From a temporary high ground, Lam Wai trembles and questions if the dark aura is beyond saving. Captain. to stays calm as unease spreads. Thonanguyen explains the dark eclipse, a pinnacle dark attribute that devours decay itself, yet notes this eruption avoids the sovereign's reign. Lin Wei shakes in horror, recalling forum records of a force that can erase a city, begging to retreat as he forms a yang lightning spherical shield. He reassures them that the shield counters darkness, urging everyone to maintain it together to protect those vulnerable to the tide. Thonanguyen quickly intervenes, warning that condensed dark attributes can't be stopped at their level, citing how a spirit realm master vanished instantly. Yai draws his sword, one side blazing with yang light, the other crackling with thunder as spiritual power surges like a raging torrent. He steps beyond the shield and launches forward like an arrow, while Lin Wei screams in disbelief at his intent to confront the dark dusk. Close to the dark sea, his glowing figure charges into the abyss core, instantly swallowed by the black waves. Yang power fiercely repels darkness, letting him move freely as he sinks deeper into the sea of death. Crimson eyes bloom all around in the depths. He curls his lips in a cold smile, finding the sight exactly as expected. To the monsters, he appears as irresistible bait, drawing them closer as they tighten the encirclement. He remains composed, realizing these are not mere A-rank beasts but evolved hybrid entities twisted by darkness. His gaze tracks their rapid shifts from B to A, then to S, their strength in this domain reaching a terrifying extreme. Thunder gathers in his hands as he bursts forward like lightning, unleashing rapid strikes that rip through the monster's hunting range. Yet enemies pour in endlessly, growing more frenzied as fallen beasts fuel their bloodlust. He widens the gap, eyes flashing gold, then spins into a fierce counter, a blazing slash of yang and fire erasing a pursuing giant. Amid combat, he spots a familiar figure, a monster gnawing on Elder Dang's head, triggering brief recognition, assessing quickly. He notes faint resistance remains. The man's spiritual core isn't fully devoured, leaving a slim chance to save him. Acting instantly, he raises a hand and summons concentrated lightning, power compressing with lethal focus. He drops his hand as a massive lightning pillar crashes down, obliterating surrounding monsters and freeing the old man. The elder collapses, heavily contaminated and unable to fight, barely clinging to consciousness. A swift examination confirms survival is possible, though the odds remain grim. Shattered black shadows begin to wriggle back to life, reforming as they crawl toward the lone figure in the glowing sea. Growls shake the abyss as regeneration becomes clear. He sneers, recognizing the trait and considering a counter. He dispels his protective barrier deliberately, choosing to test whether the system can interfere with this dark attribute. The system warns of overwhelming darkness, then denies editing access, forcing him to rely on lightning alone as corruption presses in. He restores the shield, mind racing as monsters charge harder, realizing destruction or absorption won't work here. Brief regret surfaces for lacking certain resources, leaving him searching for another solution amid the chaos. Suddenly, realization sparks in his eyes as brilliant light flashes. What he needs is already right here. Fang Yi. Outside the remaining shield, everyone still trembled. The alluring woman asked Captain Tu if he had ever seen this before, but Huin shook his head, admitting he had no such experience. Staring at the surging darkness ahead, someone muttered anxiously, wondering if the dark tide would ever recede. Suddenly, the barrier quivered. Lam Yun shivered, unease crawling up her spine, saying the shield felt wrong, far worse than when facing the demon vine and worrying about her cousins still inside. Thonanguyen gently held Lam Wei's icy hand, reassuring her that the shield remained stable. He said if they pooled their power, they might hold on. And if something happened, they would face it together. The female captain spoke bluntly, explaining that someone with twisted Taolin attributes likely held power near the 3-star spirit creator realm, making rescue unnecessary and reckless. Her honesty left Lam Wei and the charming woman speechless. Lam Wei even laughed, calling Captain Tu amusing. while Huin scratched his head shyly and asked if they felt better as they talked. A golden light brighter than the sun erupted from the horizon, ripping through the darkness with a thunderous blast. The explosion shook the land as 9 massive fire dragons coiled and roared across the sky, overwhelming and majestic. This was the secret. 9 dragons, heavenly fire, wind seal. Surrounded by the circling dragons, he roared, his voice shaking heaven and earth. Shock froze everyone. The charming woman cheered in delight, while Lam Wai stared blankly, unable to process the sight. She gasped that the move was incredible as the 9 dragons tightened, compressing the violent dark tide into confinement. From afar, Jia Lam struggled to hide her shock behind her usual cold gaze, watching the energy sphere take shape. She wondered silently if the dark tide had truly been sealed. Below, he clenched his teeth, pouring all his spiritual power into shrinking the massive seal. Lightning surged into it, reinforcing the pressure and forcing the darkness to yield. In that moment, he looked like a god bearing a world, spiritual power flooding out as the dragons responded. He slammed the sealing orb into the ground, shattering earth and stone, then continued compressing it without pause. Rings of celestial fire spun like lethal threads, locking every escape path. At last, the sphere shrank to a fist-sized core, blazing with heavenly fire, an eternal lock trapping the silent darkness. When it ended, he dragged Elder Dang's limp body out and dropped him down, saying they were safe for now and asking what to do next. Lin Wai rushed over in relief, grateful he was unharmed. Seeing the elder, Than Nguyen suggested handing him over to his team for treatment. Noticing his frown, she wondered why he seemed displeased despite sealing the dark tide. Secretly admiring his success, he turned to leave, urging haste since the seal was temporary and the dark aura too dense, suggesting they gather rotten flowers quickly. Someone asked about the others ahead. He replied sadly that none survived, leaving the charming woman sighing at how quickly everyone vanished. He swiftly assigned roles, sending the girls and captain to ahead while he covered the rear, warning that the black pond was the real danger. Standing at the cliff's edge, he looked down at the remaining dark water as the system activated, analyzing the violent dark waves. The black tide surged in his mind. Confirmation followed as calculations began, and dark energy was identified. Columns of energy rose around him, and he relaxed his body. Black strands seeped into him as he allowed the darkness to enter. Moments later, he opened his eyes, dark purple light flickering within. The process succeeded, granting a dark attribute cultivation method that formed a foggy domain, sealing and corroding spiritual energy. He quickly grasped that using this domain would drain opponents, and combining it with other elements could weaken enemies even faster. Movement behind caused the fog to ripple, drawing Than Nguyen's uneasy glance as if the mist were alive. He fell silent, watching dark mist converge into the floating figure. While Huin muttered in disbelief at another breakthrough, she suddenly realized the truth, shocked at the thought of absorbing a forbidden S-level dark tide, something all cultivators feared. Dark anomalies were ranked separately because even the weakest caused torment, and an S-level tide could devour spirit creators effortlessly. She recalled a cultivator driven insane by a mere trace of dark energy, still confined for treatment, finishing the absorption. He sighed lightly and addressed the shadows, calmly telling the observer to come out. Jia Lam lowered her mask and stepped forward, stating that he must have sealed the dark tide. Huin cried out in shock, but Jia Lam ignored her, staring coldly at him and asking if he had just absorbed the dark attribute. Feng Yi answers without flinching, admitting it plainly. Than Nguyen freezes, stunned that he just confessed so easily. Jia Lam snaps a pistol from her coat and aims the dark muzzle at him, chilling the air. The seductive woman stiffens as tension spikes. She shouts at Jia Lam, demanding what she's doing, while Lam Wai watches in panic as the standoff turns dangerous. Aya rushes forward and plants herself in front of him, yelling that the army's top recruitment target is him, so why threaten what you tried to claim before? He gently moves her aside and speaks evenly, reminding them the mission is rotten flowers, then needles that Jialam seems upset they survived this far. Jialam admires the sharp jab in silence, yet keeps her finger tight on the trigger. The alluring woman steps up, defending him and accusing Jialam of standing idle earlier, saying without the great elder they'd be wiped out, so why target him now? Jialam suddenly smiles, pockets the gun, and calls it a joke, saying they passed her test and congratulating him as his team rallies around him. The shy girl blushes and denies any love, while Fen Huan echoes agreement. He stares coldly at Jialam, and she admits she came to challenge him. She explains she ignored paperwork to judge him directly, since talent like his deserves personal scrutiny, not cold files. Her gaze cuts to the seductive woman like a blade as she explains her delay, and the pressure from the old man's aura makes the woman tremble. She says cultivators must obey cultivator rules in a restored spiritual era, where survival follows harsh laws that never stay gentle. No new anomaly struck because they feared his dark tide sealing power, leaving the path quiet under that oppressive deterrence. He considers it and concludes the dark tide bullies the weak and fears the strong, exactly as it behaves. She turns and signals for the group to follow, claiming she'll lead them to the rotten flower since she knows this area best. He watches her back, sensing something off. Thananguyen whispers that her team met the dark tide before, and she alone survived. He nods, understanding her rigid obedience and belief system, and that sealing the dark tide finally cracked her restraint. He gives a wry, sympathetic smile and tells Lady 81 and Little 2 to show patience with this wounded person. The charming woman asks what injury, and he explains her spiritual shield is badly weakened, only around 2-star spirit creation ability, yet reduced by 2 levels. Up ahead, Jialam stops and casually says thanks, insisting she's fine despite what he just pointed out. They enter the graveyard's deepest dark, bones scattered everywhere, dread pressing in, while Jialam leads and silence swallows the group. They pass a skeleton still wearing a military cap, and he quietly guesses what kind of end happened here. Ahead, a strange flower glows atop a small mound. Jialam points and says it's the graveyard's rotten flower, then falls silent. Painful memories surge back and tighten her posture without a single word. Jialam walks toward the bloom as shadowy figures hover around her like silent guards on escort duty. She reaches out, her face twisting as if control slips, whispering that she finally meets it again after so long. Behind her, he frowns as unease rises, sensing a dangerous shift and refusing to let it spiral. He forms a fireball in his palm and hurls it at Jialam, barking at her to calm down before she loses herself. The blazing orb screams toward her, heat snapping her awake, and she notes the frightening force. Recognizing a rare Yang attribute, she spins and slaps the attack apart into sparks, then glares at Huangdi, displeased at the harsh intervention. She looks back and finds the faint shadows of her former teammates gone, leaving only emptiness and a path forward. Self-blame twists in her chest, wondering if her preparation still falls short as the past refuses to stay buried. Lin Wei steps in gently to ask if she's okay, and Huin urges them to stay together, but Jialam stays silent and stops moving. Seeing the stall, he slips away from the group and heads alone for the target, while Huin tells Jialam he can harvest the rotten flower. Wherever he walks, thick dark fog parts on its own as if repelled, and he reaches the flower's spot then abruptly vanishes from view. The earth beneath him shudders hard. Booming echoes roll up as a dreadful presence rises, warning that something horrific is waking. A giant half-ghost beast crawls out of the dark soil, its body ruined and leaking, then roars and lunges straight at him. Its red maw yawns wide with jagged fangs, and ghostly wails spill out, hinting at swallowed souls as hunger-driven cries pound the air. He gives the monster a cold look and lifts his right hand, calling lightning into his grip. He whips his arm down, releasing a net of lightning that blankets the area, slamming into the water demon with a sharp crack. Fang Yi, lightning scorches the monster, forcing a pained howl. yet the current only restrains it as the sea demon thrashes and struggles with savage force. He wonders how many anomalies it devoured to mutate so far, suspecting another S-rank threat, and decides to end this fast before the Dark Tide seal collapses. Still standing, then test this. A dark purple barrier surges from him, expanding rapidly and swallowing the battlefield. In seconds, the barrier locks shut, isolating him and the water demon inside a sealed world. The infinite shadow realm activates as black currents bind the demon from all sides, corroding its power relentlessly. Fear ripples through the monster as its strength drains, unable to grasp what is happening. The system reports the dark attribute suppressing the anomaly, downgrading the cursed lake monster. He tightens his grip. Noting the sharp drop is not surprising. Yang flames ignite along his blade, crimson light tearing through the shadowed realm as power surges. He swings once. A fire dragon erupts, engulfing the water demon completely. It ends there, outside. Huin stares at the black sphere and questions the strange aura. While Lam Wai agrees it lacks the usual crushing cold of darkness, Islam steps in. Stunned. Explaining this is his personal domain. Proof he has mastered darkness enough to form one. Too many shocks hit at once. She recalls how creating a domain was once near myth, known only to a handful, memories of past disasters flashing back. Tan Nguyen's shout snaps her out of it. The sphere is fading. Jia Lam gasps in surprise at how fast it ended. The darkness disperses as he steps out smiling calmly, assuring them the graveyard is no longer a threat. He walks toward the flower mound, the fragile blooms swaying as if responding to him alone. He carefully uproots the flower with its roots intact, movements gentle and precise. Holding the blossom, he exhales quietly, confirming the danger is finally over. Jia Lam watches from afar, heart pounding tighter with every second, seeing the small flower in his hand. Disbelief hits her. He nods, confirms success, and urges immediate withdrawal before the dark water reacts. He glances at the unconscious elder being dragged along and adds that they are already slowed down enough. Jia Lam smiles sincerely for once and thanks him. He responds modestly, crediting the team, and orders the group to move out. They reform exactly as before. Lam Wai and Lady 81 ahead, Than Nguyen's squad center, him guarding the rear with Jia Lam beside him. As they walk, Jia Lam finally speaks openly, thanking him for saving the only Diamond Realm Master who can still be cured. Hearing that, his eyes narrow slightly, the weight of that realm settling in his thoughts. As black fog thins and light appears, Lady 81 cheers in joy, with Lam Wai echoing relief at seeing daylight again. Soldiers and association members erupt in whispers and disbelief, stunned that the rotten flower was truly retrieved. Stepping into the crowd, Lady 81 grows shy, while he ignores the stares, his attention caught by a massive military vehicle ahead. The Spirit Zone insignia stuns Lady 81, and realization dawns that Jia Lam is a high-ranking soldier from that legendary force. The Spirit War Zone stands supreme among all forces, elite even before revival, now reinforced by resources and forbidden training grounds. The rotten flower is sealed carefully and handed to Han Lei, who accepts it with rare gratitude. Han Lei salutes sharply, hand to chest, voice ringing with command. Every soldier follows, offering the highest salute as the flower is rushed for treatment with Jia Lam's approval. The vehicle roars off, carrying hope for Elder Neil's survival. After it leaves, he asks calmly about her affiliation. She confirms and hints his deeds will soon spread everywhere. He listens without pride as she admits his strength surpasses elite squads and that his limits remain unseen. She invites him directly, offering top resources and doubled rewards, but he declines politely, choosing his own path. She respects the choice and warns that dark anomalies are multiplying, spreading like malignant growths with catastrophic risk. She explains containment zones are being reinforced and stresses this is not coercion, only truth he deserves to know. He nods, appreciating the honesty, promising he will never ignore anomalies, even when alone. Jia Lam smiles genuinely, glad their paths crossed. Fang Yi, with genuine intent, she produces a black dragon-shaped token engraved with Spirit Battlefield and places it in his hand, telling him to keep it close. She explains that the token grants free access to restricted cultivation zones and that the spiritual base gates will always open for him. Then pauses in hesitation. After a brief silence, she suggests visiting Old Wu, the Diamond Realm Master, calling him her teacher and expressing a personal wish for them to meet as friends. He stays quiet, pockets the token, then suddenly extends his hand and agrees with a grin, saying making friends is never a bad deal. Before she reacts, lightning wraps around her body, freezing her in shock as he calmly states he can purge the remaining dark toxin from her. Blue-green currents surge through her without pain, bringing warmth instead, as the cold decay fades and damaged areas rapidly recover. The lightning cleanses her veins completely, flushing out every trace of darkness, leaving her refreshed as if reborn, prompting a stunned thank you. Seeing color return to her face, he asks how she feels. She checks herself, smiles brightly, and confirms the dark remnants are fully gone. Meanwhile, Elder Dang is rushed away, doctors doubtful of survival. Hoon scans around, then abruptly freezes in surprise. Pai runs over, shocked to see them still there and even more stunned that her injuries are fully healed. She answers plainly that pure lightning erased the remaining darkness from her body. Thon Nguyen's eyes light up with excitement, praising the Tyrant Thunder attribute, making him instinctively step back defensively. She ignores his reaction and urgently calls doctors over to confirm the discovery. Turning back, she eagerly proposes cooperation, explaining his power combined with medical tools could save more corrupted cultivators. After finishing, she bows deeply, sincerely asking him to lend that power again. He releases lightning freely into the air, sparks dancing calmly, asking if that works. The doctor studies the flow, nodding firmly, stating such pure lightning can indeed suppress dark attributes. She adds that earlier, direct energy transfer cleared her corruption, suggesting pairing him with other critical patients. Huin shakes his head hard, warning not everyone can endure that level of energy, and the doctor confirms only partial recovery is realistic. Tang Yi grasps the idea quickly, comparing it to blood transfusion, then asks how to transfer the energy safely. The doctor guides him to an ambulance device, instructing him to place his hand and release power, which he does. Nearby, Lam Wai watches quietly, amazed that a spirit war zone officer offered such favor to her cousin. Despite her icy nature, she actively sought friendship and even gave him her personal token. Lost in thought, she snapped back when he asks how things are. She smiles, saying they'll train harder and stop relying on him. She resolves not to hold anyone back again and vows to catch up soon. She doesn't stop him, only reminds him to stay safe. He answers with an easy smile. Watching him leave, she realizes he has truly grown stronger. With matters settled, Thon Nguyen prepares to depart, saying farewells as the group moves to visit Old Wu. The ambulance departs as Thon Nguyen vents loudly inside, teammates laughing and telling him to calm down about lost connections. At the mountain hospital, he looks at the frail old man on the bed in disbelief, questioning if this truly is Elder Wu. Old Lam confirms, explaining he once looked even worse and still hasn't awakened despite treatment. He asks quietly what kind of ordeal led to this state. Jia Lam recalls the dark catastrophe over the capital, when the sky tore open with an anomaly. She explains that all spiritual energy was poured into him, nearly exhausting every reserve. Her voice tightens as she recalls the disaster exceeding S-level, capable of wiping out a capital and its surroundings. The capital's fall would mean national collapse, forcing him to deploy his domain to seal it. But the anomaly proved far stronger than expected, overwhelming even combined forces. Without that Diamond Realm Saint, he would have been erased entirely by the darkness. Hearing this, he feels deep respect and wonders if he could have changed that outcome. In silence, he feels gratitude toward heroes like Old Wu, knowing sacrifices like theirs once saved humanity itself. Fang Yi. He says little and reaches toward Old Ngo. Jalam jolts and blurts out, alarmed. asking what he intends to do to her master. He lets gentle lightning trace along the old man and explains calmly not to panic, saying the rotten flower worked, but removing lingering dark residue could help him wake sooner. She freezes in disbelief, stunned that he would attempt this against an S-rank level catastrophe. Then she remembers it was him who retrieved the lethal flower from the realm of death. Taking a slow breath, she steadies herself and agrees. Blue lightning crackles softly through the quiet room, wrapping Old Ngo's frail body as hope flickers. Even while she warns the dark attribute here is worse than the dark tide. He nods, expression grave, stating he can feel the pressure of the dark attribute. Weakened yet still oppressive despite the rotten flower's cleansing. Without warning, inky black bone spurs erupt from Old Ngo's body, spreading violently across the room. The bizarre sight sends a chill through her spine, shock freezing her in place. Black bones surge and coil around him like a living shroud. She shouts urgently for him to stay focused as the corruption tries to invade. He shuts his eyes and circulates protective energy as warm yang light bursts out, forming radiant armor around him. When his eyes open, golden spiritual fire burns within his pupils. The hospital vanishes, replaced by a desolate street under a bleak sky, where a massive eye-shaped cloud looms, watching him in silence. The crimson eye speaks from above, demanding his identity. He answers cautiously, unsure if this is illusion or a sealed realm born from mind corruption. Not knowing the nature of the space, he stands firm and declares that names do not matter, because he came only to destroy it. Lightning answers his will as thunder roars. The red eye retaliates with savage black energy, yet he remains steady. Unshaken by the first strike, he activates golden sun breathing and glides aside, narrowly evading the lethal sweep. Studying the attack, he realizes the black force mimics lightning, rivaling thunder he once absorbed. A deafening hum follows as countless shadowed insects pour from the cloud, swarming with power equal to dark tide creatures, numbering beyond count. He calmly condenses blazing yang energy, bright as the noon sun. Summoning his sword, he fixes a cold stare on the insects, forming a demonic visage. He states evenly that extermination is the only answer. Gripping the blade, he charges forward with unstoppable force. A horizontal slash erupts in golden light, shredding the swarm as explosions ripple through the ground. The insects scatter, then reform into the red eye, allowing him to gauge its weakened strength. Though still S-rank in nature, its power has dropped sharply, likely dulled by illusion and decay. He leaps again, using a water pillar to close distance, realizing the disaster Old Ngo faced surpassed even city-ending threats, shaking his head. Resolve hardening. He chooses not to waste time and prepares his newest method. He releases the void darkness realm. A black sphere forms in his hand, dragging insects inward as the red eye trembles, stammering in fear and questioning his humanity. He chuckles softly, refusing both denial and admission. With a shout, he expands the domain fully, spiritual light surging as the infinite shadow realm erupts with crushing pull. As it is swallowed, the red eye roars hatred, vowing return, before silence falls and the space collapses. Its final words trouble him, hinting at allies and future calamities yet to come. Remaining insects attempt ambush, but he detects them instantly and wipes them out with lightning. Back in reality, he snaps his eyes open and rips a dark mass from Old Ngo's body, leaving her breathless in shock. The black mass thrashes helplessly, bound tight by lightning. To end it cleanly, he activates the Nine Dragons' Heavenly Fire Seal, fiery chains locking the darkness in place. The mass compresses into a radiant gem marked by heavenly fire. She finally asks if this was the last of the darkness within her master. He explains that stronger remnants remain, weakened by decay and sealing, and her admiration grows as she realizes Old Ngo still contained catastrophe-level power. Fang Yi. Elder Ngo truly ranks first in Ha country, using his own body to drain and suppress darkness, seeing the red veins fade and his face regain color. Jia Lam asks sincerely if he really saved him. He shakes his head modestly, saying Hua Tat Thoi made it possible, since without it he couldn't purge the stubborn residue. The monk agrees, crediting the flower and his power together. He crushes the heavenly fire gem with lightning and sheer force. Crack it shatters into black dust. He shrugs, declaring it useless now. Jia Lam tucks Elder No in, then he turns serious, warning that the disaster's remnant promised to return, so they must prepare and not send a freshly recovered elder to fight. Her expression darkens as she nods, admitting she has heard the same rumor before. He looks surprised, questioning how rumors spread when abnormal fluctuation intel is tightly controlled by the Army and the Spiritual Energy Association. She explains the rumor claims their data and reserves won't last beyond the first year after spiritual energy recovers, though most people refuse to believe it. He presses further, saying the monitoring sounds credible and asks if she believes it. She answers with a firm nod. He falls silent, thinking hard. Rebirth may have shifted the timeline, since he remembers surviving to the 3rd year after recovery, even when Lam Tin nearly collapsed. He pats Old Lam's shoulder, telling him not to overthink and promising Old Wu will awaken soon, then vows that if calamity returns, he will stand with them. He swears quietly that the next calamity will arrive sooner or later, and this time he will rewrite the outcome. Under a bright, full moon, he sits cross-legged in his apartment, mind tangled, sensing he is close to a 2-star spirit realm breakthrough after 2 S-rank battles. He draws energy into his dantian, then opens his eyes and ends training. Yet the red eye and that illusion still cling to his thoughts, even weakened. That abnormality felt terrifying. Then the small white flower pot glints under moonlight, and he realizes he has neglected his little companion. The little white flower nuzzles his finger like a pet. He smiles, strokes the petals, and admits leaving it behind was a mistake, only because it was hard to carry. He lifts the pot and sighs, regretting he never let it show its value or level up, then decides to take it out for a walk. He and the flower slip out toward the mountain forest, noting the Botanical Research Institute's skill as burned trees recover fast and new plantings spread. Deep in the woods, he carefully removes the little white flower from its pot, thinking he owes Little Two and their team a proper thanks. He plants it and warns sternly absorbs sometimes, but don't get greedy without limits. This whole Lam Tin forest still wouldn't satisfy it. The flower understands, nodding repeatedly. He relaxes and lets it root, delicate strands sinking quickly into the soil. Wild attribute spreads outward, greedily drawing vitality from nearby plants like a silent wave. Trees around them lose their green in seconds, turning gray and withered. He judges the intake, then plucks it up quickly. The flower looks confused as he says they will switch spots and keeps moving to feed it again. Staring at the now lush bloom, he wonders its rank among plant evolutions, betting its abnormal wild trait should reach at least A level. He sets it back in the basin and keeps walking, joking that the mountain animals vanished today, likely scared off by its savage presence. Right then, a wolf howl cuts through the forest, snapping him into alert focus. He squints toward the sound, listening closely, confirming it's a wolf call. Yellow moonlight flips to sinister blood red as mutated wolves howl together. He mutters that the pack is evolving under the blood moon. The Wolf King rises on 2 legs, dark aura spreading wide. The pack forms up, baring claws, eyeing him as prey while he studies the alpha's completed evolution. The Wolf King roars again, eyes turning deadly green as its body twists into a form no normal wolf could match. He hugs the little white flower, wondering if this aura signals an A-level abnormality. At the Wolf King's command, the pack circles in, tightening the ring. He calculates rapidly, tracking angles and numbers. He realizes the Wolf King shifted from wood to corrosive poison, likely born from absorbing dark attribute contamination. He senses the danger dark activity is rising, pushing the Wolf King into dual attributes, yet he stays calm compared to worse anomalies. This is still only A rank. An old plan clicks. He pulls the little white flower from the pot again, ready to use it. He plants it and starts counting risks. The pack is huge, and a city district sits at the mountain's base. meaning a breach could turn into disaster. When ready, he signals the flower to begin, testing its raw savage power. The Wolf King reads the provocation and orders the pack to strike. Down at the mountain's foot, Spiritual Energy Association patrols rush in after spotting blue light, asking contamination level. The device reads 90 and the mood turns grim. Eyes widen as the number keeps climbing. Captain Le Huang sweats, estimating the Wolf King's strength, then panics at the pack's rising tiers and admits they lack manpower. A cold, gloomy aura bursts out, and someone recognizes it instantly. Dark aura, again explaining why contamination is skyrocketing. Fang Yi. He finally understands the spike in contamination. King Lang completed a full attribute evolution, an extremely rare abnormal case, as alarms scream and the meter slams into red danger. Even if defeat is certain, they must stall it. Once these beasts finish evolving, the mountain base collapses into chaos before reinforcements are called. A massive blast shakes the ground. The mountainside trembles violently. This is no normal quake. Sharp-eyed members realize another anomaly is interfering as devices begin failing. The reading jumps from 100 to 1,000. Sirens shriek. A violent explosion erupts as wild spiritual energy floods outward, freezing everyone in fear. Someone screams that this is primal power. It spreads fast, eroding life. Orders switch to full retreat as panic surges and confusion erupts. While shouting evacuation orders into the radio, a squad member suddenly stops, yelling that the wild power has halted. He turns back and sees it too. The deadly vines stopped expanding, contained within a fixed range. Confusion spreads. Was the power sealed deep inside? The suffocating danger vanishes. Silence follows. Someone hesitates, asking if reporting is still needed. Ahead, thick vine roots surge upward, ancient and massive, blooming with pure white flowers. Wind scatters petals like snowfall, leaving the entire team frozen in disbelief. Back on the slope, the battlefield transforms into a white ocean. King Lang thrashes wildly. Claws tear through flowers, shredding petals that scatter helplessly into the air. He watches coldly as the field regenerates endlessly, spreading until it drains every last drop of strength. The Alpha still struggles behind its shield, but its pack has no protection at all. Wolf cubs scream as roots tighten, draining blood and spiritual power at terrifying speed. Moments later, only pale skeletons remain, scattered across the ground. With everything consumed, the spirit flower shifts from white to deep crimson. Enraged, King Lang launches poisoned energy straight at the flower in vengeance. The blast detonates loudly, yet the roots absorb it without damage, ensuring safety behind it. He smirks lightly, mocking that the wild attribute already owns this land. Before the Alpha, the flower stands like an unreachable sovereign, the forest feeding itself endlessly. The enraged king charges anyway, unaware it has already been marked. He praises the precision, impressed it located the original body so quickly. He teases softly, asking the flower how it plans to respond. The flower expands rapidly, towering high, crimson petals opening like a monstrous maw, clamping down on the Wolf King's head. The Alpha bites and injects dark toxin in desperation. Arms crossed, he watches calmly, noting it chose corrosion over escape. Torn petals regenerate instantly. Wild vitality and life absorption overwhelm the Alpha, dragging it fully inside. The petals close, digestion beginning in silence. He mutters in awe at such savage dominance, realizing it developed its own cultivation path without system editing. Observing the field, he concludes no anomaly can escape once trapped here. The flower finally releases a clean white skeleton. He nods in satisfaction, stroking the crimson petals, naming it an infinite spiritual sea. The flower trembles joyfully as the system confirms a new wild domain technique formed. After battle, it spreads wide, absorbing heaven and earth energy. He notes its evolution is imminent. In the association's observation room, alarms scream as red warnings flash. 2 energy streams detected. One manager frowns sharply and demands the exact location. Researchers report it's a low mountain forest once overseen by Captain 2. Concern deepens. The radio crackles violently, barely holding signal. A shocked report comes through. Wild attribute power erupted from the wolf pack and wiped out the A-rank anomalies. Contamination far beyond standard. Fuangdi paused, choosing his words carefully. The savage force didn't strike. It retreated into the mountain instead. Now the peak blooms unnaturally. Endless flowers bursting open as crimson petals swirl through the air. He turns grave, warning that no one can approach and the fallout remains unknown. Thoughts raced as he weighed the danger. If this anomaly spirals, it will dwarf the previous aerial demon. Calling reinforcements feels risky, yet doing nothing is worse. After a sharp breath, Tran Lai decides to dispatch 2 elite squads to intervene. Xiao Tu Tuotian Huan stands beside the monitor, eyes locked. A familiar silhouette flashes through her mind. The source is behind the mountain. The feeling hits hard. It's him again. She tells herself to wait. Then certainty lands. The one who released that wild power has to be Fuangdi. His home sits right there. Her voice hardens with faith. He wouldn't let anyone nearby come to harm. Across the mountain, scarlet petals scatter on the wind, forming a dazzling storm of color that blankets the sky. Facing a towering crimson blossom, he nods in approval. It consumed King Ling and now mirrors its path, standing on the brink of awakening a second attribute. The small flower turns into a living void, dragging petals inward from every direction. In a blink, the red fragments ignite into a spellbinding blaze, dancing like conscious fire. Heat surges outward, forcing him to narrow his eyes. A satisfied smile follows. Fire, then. The outcome is unexpected, yet perfectly welcome. To hasten the evolution, he willingly feeds it part of his innate fire essence. Watching the rapid change, amazement mixes with faint envy. It evolves simply by absorbing power. Such an effortless path of growth feels almost heretical. After the breakthrough, the flower contracts, becoming a tiny scarlet bud resting obediently in his palm. The system reports its fusion progress, the wolf pack's completion, and its rise as a grade A royal fire spirit flower with wild traits. One phrase makes him pause: infinite shadow realm. Following the system's prompt, he shapes a barrier in his hand. A dark ring spins slowly into existence. With careful control, he adjusts it and slips the flower inside, smiling as it settles into the gloom like a new den. Within the infinite shadow realm lies warped darkness and rare soil formations. He calculates each variable with calm precision. Those abnormal dark elements could trigger another mutation if absorbed. As the thought settles, clouds swallow the moon, thunder rolling as a storm gathers. He remains unshaken. A breakthrough is coming, the birth of a 2-star spiritual realm, announced by the roaring heavens. Thunder pounds like war drums while natural energy floods toward him. He sits cross-legged and begins the ascension. Power pours through his body, sharper and smoother than before. The world's energy blends with him as if this union were destiny. What he doesn't see is the stranger lurking nearby, hidden behind an ancient tree. Greedy eyes lock onto the meditating figure like a hunter spotting prey. A low voice murmurs that he's finally been found. The watcher is Kwang Luk, a combat addict. Ecstasy twists his features. Heavenly fire, legendary sword, 2-star realm. The thought alone thrills him. He lives to dominate, obsessed with proving supremacy among fire cultivators. Every praise of his rival fuels his rage. If there's a so-called fire immortal, he plans to snuff that flame and claim the crown himself, ever vigilant. He senses the intrusion at once and shouts into the darkness, demanding the trespasser reveal himself. The answer comes as a massive fireball tearing through the air. He reads the attack instantly, recognizing a fellow fire cultivator as the flames close in. Shadow energy condenses without delay, a black sphere spinning in his palm, hungry and absolute. Darkness swallows all attributes. The ambush dissolves effortlessly, and he smirks, forcing the attacker to step into view. The stalker shows no shame, barely hiding his presence as if daring discovery. Confidence drips from every careless movement. The intruder slams down hard, dust exploding outward, unbound by factions. Kwang Luk lives for battle alone. He laughs wildly, praising the pressure he senses and demands to know how his earlier Fire Phoenix strike was nullified. He weighs the taunts in silence, eyes sharp and unreadable. The lack of response only amuses Kwang Luk, who laughs louder, forgetting even basic introductions. With a feral roar, Kwang Luk charges forward, bellowing his name as if it alone guarantees victory. Words end there. He lifts a hand and calls on nature itself. Kwang Luk grins mid-rush, bleeding yet blind to the catastrophe forming. Certain this clash will decide everything. He surges ahead. A thunderous blast erupts as blue lightning coils above the battlefield. Kwang Luk lunges like a missile when a nightmare unfolds. A lightning dragon twists down in front of him. Shock freezes his thoughts. Before recovery, a pillar-thick bolt slams into his body. A lesser man would have vanished instantly. His spirit creation physique barely saves him. Smoke pours from his mouth as agony sears his organs. Limbs numb and unresponsive. He crashes down, disbelief etched across his face. Lightning shouldn't exist in a pure fire path, yet it crushed him in one strike. Trembling, drenched in sweat, he struggles to accept the collapse of his pride. He steps closer, shadow falling like a verdict. A hand settles on Kwang Luk's head and presses down. The sound is final. Power and lightning converge, smashing Kwang Luk into the ground as cracks spiderweb under the crushing force. Tilting his head, he asks with cold mockery, repeating the name Kwang Luk shouted moments before. The resilience of the spirit realm keeps Kwang Luk conscious, yet awareness only deepens the humiliation burning inside him. Pinned by one hand, he can't even lift his head. Panic roars in his mind. He was always the fastest among his peers, a rising star meant to dominate. His confidence came from a rare, top-tier fire attribute and a creation spirit realm that commanded worship. In this era of energy revival, all that glory shatters beneath him. Fang Yi saw the glare and silence, sighed lightly, and decided there was no point negotiating. With people this stubborn, the solution was simple: hit them until their arrogance finally broke. A brutal arc of lightning slammed straight down from his hand, crashing onto the opponent's head. Kwang Luk screamed as pain tore through him, the sound raw and uncontrollable. Fear flooded Kwang Luk's mind, crushing his thoughts into chaos. Wasn't this man a fire cultivator? Then why did lightning erase his flames and pin him to the ground? He spoke calmly, almost bored, saying he expected more. That's it. He mocked the younger generation's confidence. Sparks crawled over his body as pressure mounted, the gap between them widening with every breath. Survival instinct kept Kwang Luk conscious, yet absolute suppression shattered his resolve. His thoughts spiraled. The other hadn't reached a higher realm. So why did the pressure feel impossibly heavier? As if separated by several stages, that faint smile and the flashing lightning crushed all hope. Despair swallowed him whole. This was the end. There was no escape left. Pride evaporated. He screamed in panic, voice breaking as desperation finally burst free. "Don't kill me." The grip suddenly loosened, catching him off guard as a cold, commanding presence replaced violence. He warned him once, stating power exists to temper oneself, not to bully others. Hands tucked away, he turned with disdain, mentioning unfinished anomalies. Kwang Luk lifted his head and whispered his name. He ignored the call, snorted, and walked off. Kwang Luk struggled upright, staring at that retreating figure. Thoughts tangled in awe and confusion over such overwhelming strength. He couldn't tell if the other was absurdly monstrous or if he himself was simply too weak. That question haunted him through the night. Later, inside a rundown inn within the lively city of Samwat, Kwang Luk dragged himself back, burned, exhausted, and blackened. He entered to the sound of laughter as his roommates failed to hold it in at his pitiful state. One teased his scorched hair with a grin, while the other shrugged knowingly, reminding him that provoking strangers never ends well. Seeing no response, the lecture continued. The energy revival hadn't even begun, and they were insignificant as dust. Yet he kept challenging enemies without restraint. That recklessness only invited disaster. Watching his uncharacteristic silence, his friend frowned, sensing something was deeply wrong. He sat beside him, arms slung over his shoulder, joking lightly to break the tension, asking if he'd been possessed. The usual hot-headed fighter was gone, replaced by an eerie stillness that refused to crack. Realizing the gravity, one asked directly about the planned challenge. Kwang Luk trembled, forcing the words out slowly. He said he was defeated instantly. Instantly the question came sharp, demanding clarity. He repeated it, voice hollow, emphasizing how fast it ended. Regret weighed heavy as he admitted he ignored the warning signs. Hearing this, disbelief spread. Someone of his talent shouldn't fall so easily. His face drained as he described the moment his proudest technique shattered under thunder. Crushed without resistance. At the mention of lightning, doubt surfaced. Maybe the target wasn't who they thought. With such pure fire talent and realm strength, few could rival him. The analysis continued. His rise had already defied logic, so perhaps the opponent from the news wasn't properly judged at all. He denied any mistake, insisting that place belonged to that man. The memory of overwhelming thunder felt like heaven collapsing beside him. A chill ran through the room as he rambled on about the monster named Fang Yi, wielding fire and lightning far beyond reason, clearly hiding his true depth. Disbelief filled the air. Such freedom at that realm made no sense. If true, this person would haunt every top genius in the future. Suddenly, resolve sparked in his eyes as he asked if seeking a master was the answer. Both roommates froze, shouting in shock. The scene shifted. Alone in his apartment, he sat cultivating, yet nothing moved. The sense of breakthrough vanished without explanation, no matter how much energy he drew in. Resonance refused to form. Opening his eyes, he withdrew his power, certain the issue came from outside. Stepping into the living room, unease grew. He recalled warnings about the military and the association watching abnormal fluctuations closely. Outside, storm clouds churned and thunder roared. A bad feeling settled in. Was the energy recovery about to erupt here? He tried calling Jialam, but only an automated voice answered. The sudden isolation made his chest tighten. No one responded. If danger existed, the military should have warned him. The silence felt wrong, like something had already gone off the rails. Then the phone rang. Tu Thun Hoin's name flashing across the screen. He answered fast, but static drowned most of the words. Through the noise came urgency, warning that the situation had changed and support might be needed. A bird slammed into the window mid-call. He asked about city conditions as the voice replied in fragments, saying the crisis was already inside. The line died, leaving only static. He shouted into the phone as frantic impacts struck the glass from outside. Crash. The window shattered. What entered wasn't normal. It was a dark attribute, abnormal. Its presence cold and hostile. Fang Yi watched the creature bare its bloodied maw and rush forward. The confusion of the situation snapped into anger as he saw the thing grossly overestimate itself. He lifted 2 fingers and called down lightning. Die. A sharp electric bolt pierced through the fallen abnormal, scorching it into silence within a heartbeat. The blast echoed through the room. Lam Wai heard it and rushed out, only to see her cousin standing beside a freshly slain abnormal, staring at the shattered window and the darkened remains on the floor. She asked anxiously what had just happened. Lam Wai moved closer, studying the punctured glass. Abnormals that once hid now attacked openly, even targeting homes. And this clearly wasn't an isolated case. He nodded grimly. Lightning flashing across the night sky. If fortune held, it stayed manageable. Otherwise, this place could suffer the same large-scale disaster seen in recent news. He quickly assessed the danger. 2-star palace guards never strike city centers, much less a mage's residence. Something was clearly wrong. He ordered preparations for an unknown battle and told her to summon every cultivator she could reach. She answered firmly, acknowledging the command. Stepping onto the ledge, he prepared to scout, then turned back to confirm her condition. He told her to guard the house and seal the breach. She responded without hesitation. Above the city, dark clouds twisted into a massive vortex as lightning raged non-stop. Signals faltered, and his exact position became impossible to trace, facing the chaos. A nervous teammate asked if they would be forced to handle it alone. Thon Nguyen shook her head. Admitting even imagining this anomaly terrified her. She adjusted the radio and issued rapid orders. Patrols reported in as she demanded constant updates on pollution fluctuations across every zone. Her words ended as a thunderous roar echoed, like countless wings beating together. All three looked up, dread flooding their faces. From the clouds, swarms of abnormals poured down, blotting out the sky. She shouted warnings over the radio, reporting mass appearances across multiple sectors. Thunder ripped through the city as rain crashed down. Emergency broadcasts issued red alerts, warning of historic rainfall and ordering residents indoors. Daylight vanished under the storm. People fled back inside, whispers spreading through streets and alleys as fear of catastrophe took hold. Despite the chaos, 2 figures sped through empty roads on motorcycles. Wind and rain lashed them as one cursed their terrible luck. Shouting over the storm, one demanded a decision. Kwang Luk stayed silent, his expression rigid, like stone. Without warning, a warped bird lunged from the rain, striking toward him. Already on edge, Kwang Luk erupted in rage. Fire surged as he roared his challenge and swung his arm. Flames exploded outward, engulfing the creature. The blast echoed, but shock followed as the anomaly remained unfazed. More explosions cracked the air. The creatures emerged untouched, flames slipping past them harmlessly. Confusion turned to alarm. Realization struck. They weren't surviving the fire, they were reviving. Kwang Luk's face paled as he ordered a retreat. Hours later, an emergency meeting convened at the Spirit Energy Association. Thon Nguyen urged immediate coordination with him at the highest level. Before discussion ended, an emergency signal broke through. A badly injured patrol member reported in, voice shaking with panic. He warned that a Level A anomaly would emerge in the city center within a day, while massive abnormal clusters gathered outside. The room erupted in shock. Orders flew out, teams were mobilized, and Thon Nguyen declared she would deploy personally. As the feed collapsed, the final image showed a colossal falling entity striking the wounded patrol. His scream cut through the static, confirming an S-rank anomaly with limitless potential. The screen dropped into darkness, leaving only the monster's crimson eyes burned into memory. While no one knew if the crucial report had reached headquarters in time, the Military Zone Command Center stood completely deserted, silent and eerily empty, without a single operator remaining. A massive black swarm plunged from the sky like a living storm, countless shapes crashing downward as explosions thundered. A blinding flash tore through the clouds as GLAM led the suicide unit straight into the falling swarm. Detonations ripping open the night sky. Rain poured relentlessly, yet her eyes burned with resolve as she advanced, every step cold, sharp, and unwavering. Sparks burst as flawless sword arcs sliced into the core, shattering the swarm into fragments that scattered across the air. Her high-level metal attribute spirit power surged, transforming spiritual energy into reinforced forms and unleashing far beyond normal output. Then she sensed something wrong, as the dark attribute rain kept multiplying without end, clearly obstructing something far more dangerous. A blonde figure wrapped in lightning dropped behind her, smiling as he remarked that her injuries had healed and her strength had grown. His gaze lifted to the swirling storm, voice turning grave as he requested orders. Noting only the two of them held the military zone front, she assessed calmly, realizing all signals were sabotaged, jammers destroyed, and outside contact severed, likely affecting every military district. She ordered 2 teams to hold the line while the rest broke through to link with other units, immediately charging forward to carve an escape route. They soon realized the anomaly's real target wasn't the military zone, but the densely packed civilian districts. Rain roared like a waterfall as thunder split the sky, dark leaves blotting out daylight while civilians sprinted for shelter on a narrow street. The livestream girl from the Heavenly Fire incident stood under the bus stop, complaining while filming, then laughing as she praised the strange weather. She excitedly shared filming tips with her friend, boasting how risk always led to explosive footage. Mid-sentence, she froze, seeing her friend shaking violently, eyes locked forward in pure terror. A shrill scream pierced the rain as a red-eyed creature clung to a boy's neck, feeding frantically without restraint. Gunfire erupted nearby. Panic exploded, and she fled screaming as monsters attacked from all sides, blood and chaos flooding the street. Human limits were cruelly exposed as a sharp claw tore into her shoulder, sending her crashing down in despair. She screamed, certain of death, when a blue arrow cut the wind and pierced the flying beast clean through. The monster fell lifeless as a figure stepped in front of her, calm and decisive like a sudden miracle. Ben Hewen and 2 teammates arrived, lifting her up while ordering others to escort her to safety immediately. Despite resistance, Captain Thon Nguyen enforced the order, warning that evolving anomalies fed on human flesh and time was critical. The team obeyed, retreating with civilians while the contaminated zone grew increasingly unstable. Fang Yi warned Lemois briefly, then leapt through the glowing window gap, landing cleanly on the opposite rooftop. A colossal falling anomaly rose before him the moment his feet touched down. Watching their coordinated movement, he suspected these creatures had evolved far beyond common ranks. Without delay, he summoned the Heavenly Fire Sword, unleashing a blazing arc that incinerated the swarm and lit the sky. Yet he sensed the anomaly was different, endlessly multiplying and adapting, refusing to die completely. Dark attribute energy surged simultaneously across crowded zones, signaling a citywide catastrophe in progress. With no time to locate association members, he chose to resolve each crisis directly and prepared a wide-area strike. He invoked the infinite Shadow Realm, calculating that speed now mattered more than conservation. He knew his allies were protected, but if this spread continued, survival itself would become uncertain. Elsewhere, Thon Nguyen fought relentlessly, breath ragged as she realized killing alone wasn't enough. Her recovery lagged, power draining fast, and fear crept in for her separated teammates. A desperate cry erupted from a nearby building, cutting through the chaos. She rushed forward without hesitation, cursing as anomalies grew stronger and civilian attacks intensified. Memories of the Imperial City disaster surged as she leapt high, releasing a storm of spiritual arrows that erased the threats. Enraged, the falling creatures turned on her midair, forcing her to brace for what might come next. Feng Yi barely pulled his thoughts back when green light flashed and froze the air. Boom! A black-blue vortex crackled with lightning, a giant hand dragging falling monsters inside. Thon Nguyen stared, stunned, sensing an anomaly about to be born. As dread settled, the city spiraled into chaos. The scale rivaled a capital-level disaster. Worse, no force could halt it. Not the Spirit Energy Association. Not even the military. The city teetered on collapse. While falling, Tan Huyn activated her protective energy and reported in. Zone A's expedition sacrificed themselves, raising bone barriers to slow the swarm. Zone B lured anomalies into a circle, forming another barrier to finally thin the rain. Emergency alert. Dark attribute cocoon energy hit Diamond Tier. Predicted S-rank threat signals the abnormal king. Headquarters tightened as reports poured in sages and staff down. Casualties overwhelming. Reinforcements too slow. Tranley triggered the S-class plan. Knowing help would arrive too late. A young man spoke, voice shaking. Black fog sealed the city, blocking soldiers and outsiders. Tranley listened in silence. His chest felt crushed. The worst had arrived. The city stood isolated. Yet standing idle was impossible. Yes, this was the moment of survival. As a celestial cultivator, he vowed to stand with everyone, to live and die with the city. He issued the final command. If monsters wanted the city, they would cross bodies first. Send the last signal. If failure is certain, launch a citywide strike to stop the dark anomaly from spreading. Back on the battlefield, Tan Huan faced real danger. The swarm gathered too fast, hammering her shield non-stop. She tried to gather power, but her reserves were nearly empty. If this continued, she would pour everything into one last strike to tear open the swarm ahead. Then massive wings unfolded, blocking her attack and smashing it aside. A colossal abnormal lunged forward, wings beating violently. Huing gasped. Impossible. A 3-star ghost king. The creature roared. It slammed into her shield, cracking it apart. Cold sweat ran down her spine. Her power was almost gone. The shield shattered. Than Nguyen was hurled back, coughing black blood as she fell, eyes locked on the pursuing monster. With no escape, she chose to gamble everything. She gathered her last strength for a final attack, ready to trade her life for it. Suddenly, warm flames sliced through the air and struck the falling beast. Fire consumed it in an instant. Than Nguyen froze, then shouted in relief. She landed safely and saw a familiar figure charging in. Sword blazing, Grandmaster Phuong Dik. He wielded 2 attributes at once. His eyes split in color. Red fire on one side, blue lightning on the other. After heavenly flames, he shifted instantly to thunder. The fallen lord burst free, wounded yet savage. Unlucky for it, the moment it emerged, Phuong Dik's refined divine thunder struck again and again. Explosions chained together, erasing every fallen nearby. Sorry. Finding you took time. Too many anomalies blocked the way, Than Nguyen warned. Gasping. Be careful. They can revive. As she spoke, black mist gathered again, reshaping into falling forms. He answered calmly, raising his hand. A black circle opened and expanded, swallowing everything that dropped inside. The shadow domain spread without limit. She heard him speak with certainty and suddenly remembered what she forgot. This city still had Phuong Dik, an unmatched celestial cultivator. Thank you. The dark rain drained away as the shadow realm shrank and sealed. Phuong Dik turned and asked if she was all right. Huyen smiled weakly, saying she was fine and could recover. After a pause, she insisted on staying to help. Phuong Dik understood. He patted her back gently and sent lightning through her, purging toxins. The remaining dark attribute was cleansed. He urged her to treat her wounds. Tingling spread, then pain faded fast. Huing nodded, amazed. Her thunder affinity eased the pain and healed her faster than any association potion. At headquarters, someone shouted, "Look, the anomalies are decreasing. Did we break through?" The communications lead shook his head. No. All rescue teams were attacked and lost contact. Entry is still impossible. Outside the city, anomaly numbers remain unchanged. He pointed at the screen. Inside, ascendants keep falling. No teams reconnect. The abnormal king may be close, and the decrease could be sacrifices for its birth. I wanted to visit my parents, but that won't happen now. I can only do what I can. Inside the city, black rain spiraled around a massive cocoon shielding the king. He asked what it was. Huyen went pale. A super rare abnormal that feeds on residents' blood, rivaling the sealed horror in the military zone. She trembled at the memory. People call it a natural disaster. This cocoon is its warning. Nothing more. Watching the city fracture. It felt like humanity could foresee disaster but never stop it. She pointed at the cocoon nurturing something vile. If it hatches, the city ends. But currently, there is a clearer explanation. Mutants attack each other to evolve faster, but dark anomalies differ. Perfect evolution creates bloodline suppression. Lesser anomalies submit instinctively. This form is called the abnormal king. She looked at Fuangdik, worried. Master, your strength is terrifying, but you're not at diamond level. Even top immortals fall into coma after sealing catastrophe anomalies and need many to find the rotten flower. As a friend and admirer, she urged him to leave, break the encirclement, escape, contact the army, abandon the city. Hearing that, she believed she could still survive. Fuangdik flicked her forehead sharply. All those years of study wasted. Just so you can return everything to your teachers when energy recovers. He smiled firmly and said this was his home, and no matter the cost, he would never regret staying. Fuangdik stood ahead, his back framed by rain and blood. Than Nguyen watched him silently, fingers brushing her head as pride swelled beyond words, heavy and unspoken. He strode forward without pause, marching straight toward the giant cocoon and the ant-like swarm. The Yang Crystal Guardian ignited, radiant light bursting out as he locked eyes with the monsters. Was the plan really to sacrifice the entire city just to usher in the birth of the abnormal king? He turned to Than Nguyen and held out his hand. Is the device on your wrist still working? Let me borrow it. She froze, confused by his intent, and asked what he meant. She quickly removed the special watch and handed it over. As he put it on, she hesitated. Isn't that for anomaly detection and association communication? Why are you using it? He raised his sword and aimed it at the cocoon, voice firm and burning. I'll destroy it before it hatches, Thunder answered his words. The swarm reacted instantly, wings roaring as they tightened ranks around the cocoon like knights guarding their king. At the association control room, a screen flickered back to life. Signal restored. The target's speed spiked. Staff cheered as communication reconnected. Captain Toe was identified, and urgent calls flooded the channel. Unanswered. Panic spread. The observer stared at the data. Her speed is insane. She's charging into the most polluted zone. A red dot raced forward as orders screamed for her to retreat. Alone meant death. Jiang grabbed the radio, shouting for Than Nguyen to respond and stop. He warned that reinforcements were coming and casualties must be avoided. She halted beside him. The device on his side blinked non-stop. He heard the warnings clearly but fumbled with the unfamiliar controls. After a moment, he spoke into it. Hello, can you hear me? Luke Jiang. The reply came sharp and startled. Who are you? Where's Captain Toe? He ignored the question and spoke fast. Stay connected. I'm going to eliminate the abnormal king. Luke Jiang panicked, asking him to repeat. The cocoon finished forming as the swarm packed tighter, ready to die for it. He charged forward, voice roaring through the channel. If you want the city alive, give me all intel and equipment. I'm destroying that cocoon. Lao Jiang clenched his jaw, then decided. All units, halt and connect. Use intact satellites, track anomalies, send everything. He assigned 2 operators to guide him with precise coordinates. Agent Kohai took the console and reported quickly. Satellite visuals show extreme density around the cocoon, swarms thickening the closer they get. The movement forms a spiral like a storm. The north is thinner. That's our best opening. Front is packed. Suggest a southeast side breach. Fang Yi adjusted course instantly. Kohai spotted 2 red dots racing in. Warning sent. 2 high-level offspring detected. Estimated Demon Lord tier. Avoid direct collision. Sweat broke out in the control room. Can he dodge them? There's no time left. Then a violent blast erupted. The explosion roared through the channel, shaking the room. He collided head-on with the monsters, overwhelming them with pure, positive energy. He swung his blade, crushing the two massive anomalies blocking the path, eyes blazing with battle intent. Then, Liu Jiang froze. The energy signals vanished, both anomalies erased by a single strike. He stared in disbelief. Could this be that man? Cheers erupted. The tyrant. We're saved. Excitement flooded the room. A hidden immortal powerhouse had been fighting inside the city all along, while the rear celebrated. His gaze stayed sharp and grim on the front line. He realized something crucial. His flames now suppressed dark anomalies and slowed their revival. Lightning and heavenly fire merged, yet regret surfaced. If he had broken through earlier, that last strike might have ended it completely. He kept swinging, fire carving the sky. Without advancement, he relied on relentless speed and pressure, endless, draining, irritating. Then the cocoon trembled. A terrifying suction erupted, forcibly drawing in surrounding energy. Even distant fallen creatures panicked, abandoning fights and racing back, ignoring all attacks. In the rain, anomalies rushed toward the cocoon like moths drawn to fire. Practitioners who had just finished fighting stared in confusion. The assault stopped. Tranley frowned deeply as rain soaked him. This is bad. Such a sudden halt meant only one thing. The abnormal king was calling them back. Was it about to awaken outside the city? Tank engines thundered through the mountains. The monsters were retreating. If they gathered beyond the walls, would there still be hope? Explosions roared non-stop in the rain. A slender figure fought through the swarm, while Jia Lam shouted questions behind him. He asked how long until reaching the city center. The blonde youth checked the GPS. About half an hour. Jia Lam watched the monsters surge inward. Heart burning. Half an hour meant the king's birth and the city's end. The blonde shook his head. The numbers and levels far exceeded predictions. Tanks fired, flames swallowing patches of monsters, yet the sea barely thinned. Someone muttered that even heavy weapons weren't enough. Memories of their teacher surfaced. Jia Lam gritted his teeth. If this continues, nearby cities will fall next. Can we break through? The blonde answered flatly. Not even close. And those cultivators watching outside, do they really think disaster won't reach them? He stopped mid-sentence when he saw her staring at the distant sky in shock. The cocoon turned blood red, drawing anomalies from every direction. Jia Lam pointed. Do you see that they're gathering for the abnormal king? Then she saw it. A golden blaze tore through the storm like a rising sun. That fire, that figure. Was that him? Fuangdik noticed the commander freeze and heard the hurried call. Jalangsy quickly steadied herself, offered a calm smile, shook her head, and assured everyone she was fine. She then gave a decisive order. Boost all firepower. If that fails, we push into the city. The battlefield exists to save cities, not abandon them. Inside the city, explosions tore through the air as a massive fire dragon descended, devouring waves of anomalies. Even from afar, its overwhelming force left Giolam stunned. Thananguyen stared wide-eyed at the ocean of fire raging below. On a rooftop, Lam Wai cheered wildly. That's my uncle. That sword style is definitely his. The falling swarms split apart, one group rushing to block his advance, the other retreating to feed energy back to the abnormal king. He faced the incoming monsters and sneered. You think this stops me? Fine. He lifted his sword without hesitation. Blade and divine flame erupted together. A violent blast followed as scorching heat surged and golden light erased the fallen. Every swing dropped bodies, yet more charged in like moths to fire. His gaze sharpened. Battle intent burned as he fused completely with heavenly fire, his sword moving with ruthless precision. Then a familiar sensation returned. That feeling surged again. Light burst from him and flooded the sky. Enlightenment struck. In this fragile energy field, a breakthrough felt close. He seized the moment, surged forward, accelerated, and summoned the black circle at once. The air detonated. The dark realms spread endlessly above him. He smiled and called out for Linhua to appear. The barrier shattered. A blood-red flower tore free amid thunder. He ordered it to drain energy and support his breakthrough. The spirit flower unfurled, launching countless sharp vines that pierced through falling bodies with ease. Desolate power devoured all dark energy, leaving no chance for revival. Standing among the towering flowers, he scanned the sky. The rain was gone. Yet dark clouds concealed the cocoon. Hiding again, he chased upward and realized the cocoon was an illusion, but a heavy heartbeat thundered clearly in his ears. It felt like stepping onto an ancient battlefield. The pulse echoed like war drums, stirring buried madness and evil. He focused, realizing its hesitation meant the cocoon was not ready. Ending it now was the smartest move. Have you locked its position? The reply came instantly. Target confirmed. Coordinates synced to your device. The device beeped rapidly, projecting a red beam at a point in the air. He smiled. There, right there. He activated his method, releasing the Kim Duong breathing art and turning into a blazing sun. Radiant light expanded, wiping out the remaining fallen in an instant. Distant cultivators stared in disbelief. What power is that? Fire alone can't do this. Even Lu Jiang froze as numbers dropped fast and the anomaly density around the city plunged. From the tanks, a soldier reported that the abnormal rain was retreating, flying back into the city as if summoned. Lam looked at the blazing sun overhead and understood. He's targeting the abnormal king's cocoon. The blonde youth nodded in awe. So it really is him, the tyrant, the heavenly fireblade, facing the king alone with pure yang power. DLM ordered the advance, but the blonde suddenly blocked the path. Wait, look at that. Alam watched the giant cocoon swell and pulse. The heartbeat hammered faster. Is the king breaking free? Linhua tightened vines around the cocoon's veins as cultivators below shouted in fury, vowing to destroy the source of all evil. On a rooftop, Linhua assessed grimly. Pure defense means death. If that thing hatches, the city becomes its food. She recalled the energy-draining flower and suddenly understood. There's a way. She pointed at the crimson spirit flower. It absorbed the fallen's energy earlier. It's like the wild vine we faced before. So he has that attribute too. She urged everyone to send their spiritual energy to the flower. Cultivators responded together, pouring power upward. Tranley saw it and immediately understood. I get it. They're feeding energy into his summoned plants. I want in too. Association members agreed, joining the effort. Streams of colorful spiritual energy surged skyward, converging on the blazing flower. Than Nguyen, still recovering, looked up with emotion. This is everyone's power. She raised her hand as well. Then let's face the king together, high above. He felt the surge flow into the spirit flower, its golden light burning brighter than ever. Fuang Dik faced a massive abnormal bird lunging straight at him, its shadow blotting the air as it dropped with killing intent. He stayed calm, swung once, and split it apart instantly, black blood spraying as the body collapsed. He wiped his face and listened to Kohai's urgent warning. All external anomalies are converging on your position. He scanned his surroundings. A sea of falling monsters closed in. Kohai kept reporting. Hundreds of thousands of level B fallers, tens of thousands at level A. The scale was absurd. Even more S-rank signatures emerged. He stared at the heaving cocoon, eyes cold, words are pointless. No matter how many you call, I'll erase them. A faint smile appeared. Abnormal king. You're not fully evolved. Are you rushing out because you're scared? I'll end you first. The moment he finished, the cocoon ruptured. A thin, clawed creature tore through the membrane and crawled out. His sword flared with searing, heavenly fire. Heat distorted the air. He tightened his grip, fully alert for a fight to the death. The cocoon ripped wider. Two skeletal arms with blade-like claws tore the shell apart, forcing the monster free. A huge head emerged, a single blue eye glaring outward. Its mouth stretched wide as it roared, shaking the space itself. Before the king, the radiant spirit flower shrank to nothing. A violent blast echoed citywide as spiritual energy was drained instantly. The ground split and trembled. Fear spread everywhere. This is the abnormal king's power. Someone slammed the ground in despair. Elam watched from afar, biting her lip until it bled. Hands clasped tightly as she prayed in silence. Others stared toward him with the same unshakable belief. He locked eyes with the monster and spoke calmly. "You are the dark, abnormal king, the source of this catastrophe." Brilliant light erupted from him like sunlight, driving back the darkness. Spirit flowers shone behind him. "This city raised me. I won't let it fall." The king answered with a furious roar, shaking the clouds. He steadied himself, power surging to its limit. "Good. Then die." A deafening explosion followed. The sky split under clashing forces. Black darkness collided with blazing gold, forming a massive storm. At the center, his golden radiance burned. When the dust cleared, the king stood wounded, yet alive. Its voice echoed coldly. "You challenge me with such a realm." It opened its mouth, releasing terrifying suction that pulled everything forward. He resisted, but the force overwhelmed him. A single thought surfaced. "This is bad." He was dragged into the monster's maw, sliding into its foul, corrosive depths. Only then did he realize his miscalculation. The king endured his strongest strike and swallowed him alive. He quickly assessed the situation. It's not over. Corrosive fluids and dense dark energy surged. Any ordinary cultivator would have vanished instantly. Yet the monster had intelligence. It wasn't afraid of internal damage. The inside should be its weakest point. Enough thinking. He clenched his fist and struck back from within. The positive energy punch slammed into the stomach with a violent blast. Outside, the king convulsed, tightening its core and releasing more corrosive fluid to suppress him. He felt the reaction and nodded. Damage is possible. As long as it works, this can be solved. He called for his ally, Spirit Flower. "Come out." He analyzed quickly. The king had swallowed the flower, but it had already absorbed massive energy from outside. Yet the flower drooped. "Lifeless. You're resisting. You don't like its dark power." The rejection shocked him. The wild attribute refused the king's darkness. The plan failed, and fury surged. He drove another heavy punch into the monster's core to vent his rage. The giant king flew through the dark sky, smaller fallers raining down to replenish its strength. A woman stared upward, panic rising. "What's happening?" Lam Wai shook her head. "I don't know either." Elsewhere, the association evacuated civilians with steady broadcasts, maintaining order and preventing chaos. At headquarters, eyes stayed glued to the screen, sweat pouring down. He was battling the abnormal king from inside its body. Fuang Dik had also entered the city as tanks rolled through the streets, escorting evacuations in tight formation. GLM's voice rang out over the radio with crisp authority. The abnormal rain and the king were too distracted to strike the city. Move fast and reduce casualties. Soldiers answered together, sharp and focused, watching the monster obsessively drain spiritual energy above. Geolam clenched his teeth. "We must hurry. There's no room for mistakes." Under the pitch-black sky, the abnormal king suffered from its premature emergence. Starved, it dragged fallen creatures into its body as emergency fuel. After devouring its minions, its body entered a brutal, accelerated digestion phase. Inside, he sensed lethal danger closing in. Without warning, viscous green fluid poured down like a waterfall from the throat into the stomach. The overwhelming flow left him no escape. He activated the diamond breathing defense, bracing himself to be submerged in the corrosive tide. The stomach flooded instantly. He sank into burning slime as acid-like pain gnawed at every nerve. The diamond barrier thinned under constant erosion. His vision blurred as crushing fatigue crept in. The world before him faded to black, and he lost consciousness. Time passed unnoticed until he suddenly awoke. He opened his eyes and froze. He was no longer inside the stomach. Ahead lay a ruined city. broken buildings everywhere, with a twisted skyscraper looming behind. A shadow hid within the ruins, watching him silently. In a flash, it charged and threw a lightning-fast punch at him. Any normal person would have died instantly, but he moved on instinct and surged forward. Still, he froze for a heartbeat when he felt something terrifying. No spiritual energy flowed through his hand. In that instant, he realized he was not alone. The enemy's fist missed by inches and slammed into the ground with a thunderous crash. Debris exploded outward, but he twisted away just in time. He exhaled sharply. My body still moves. The training wasn't lost. That realization steadied him. This place was an illusion crafted by the abnormal king, meant to trick him into believing he had never awakened. The king gave no time to think. It stomped hard, shattering a stone pillar as he leapt back to dodge the follow-up blow. The monster couldn't fully strip his power, and its strength still hadn't surpassed his. He closed his eyes and focused. My power remains. There's a flaw here. Every illusion has a weakness, and that's how I break it. Taking advantage of his stillness, the monster lunged and seized him tightly, sneering in triumph. Fool, once you're here, you'll never leave. Watch carefully. He opened his eyes and smirked. There is a way. The monster's form warped, its face becoming identical to his, whispering darkly that this was his true end as it opened its mouth. A massive pull dragged him closer, as if to swallow him again. The king pointed at ruined ground where fallen cultivators lay, declaring this was humanity's fate, mere nourishment for its evolution. He saw friends and younger kin fall within the illusion, silent and unmoving. Just as despair seemed to settle, he burst into loud laughter. Golden light exploded from him, ripping through the false night. These tricks again. Invisible hands rested on his shoulders, empowering him. He sneered. You still don't understand. Countless shadows filled the sky, spirits of fallen cultivators offering their strength. He lifted his head and declared he was reborn to protect those he loved. His presence flared like a blazing sun, forcing the king to stare in disbelief. Hope burned through darkness, shredding the illusion completely. Flames crackled as his hair ignited. His eyes blazed with intent. He clenched his fist and commanded them to act. Massive golden hands formed around him as he hovered proudly with sword in hand. The system announced a breakthrough condition had been met. He slashed forward as the golden hands struck together, smiling. He said the monster had helped him